Hello friends. This is the Ani fanfics. How are you all? So we are back with second part on, what if Naruto had the power of accelerator and vector control. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin. It was the first color Kamijo saw when he opened his eyes. That was the hair color of Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the foreign girl who lived at his place as a freeloader. However, Kamijo would not think about that matter until later. He looked at the sleeping girl and frowned. She had slept while sitting on the chair beside him. Her head rested on his hospital bed, near his shoulder. It seemed the girl fell asleep there because of the exhaustion she got after staying awake all night. She must be waiting for me to wake up, Kamijo thought. Despite the peaceful face she had while sleeping, Kamijo could see traces of tears on her cheeks. A feeling of uselessness crept up on his heart. He made the girl cry again. He did that, even after making a promise to never make her feel sadness again. What kind of a person he was if he could not keep his own words. As that thought occupied Kamiju's mind, the girl beside him squirmed. A few seconds later, a pair of emerald green eyes showed themselves. It was at that time that Index's gaze met Kamiju's. Tuma. Index cried out when she noticed he was awake. 2 days had passed since the incident in Misawa Cram School. This whole time, Kamijo Tuma had not regained his consciousness until just now. Index had fainted the moment she saw the horrifying scene that night. It was an image which she would never been able to forget in her lifetime due to her perfect memory. The nun did not really know what exactly happened. The only thing she knew was the fact that Kamijo got his right arm, right up to his shoulder, cut off by the alchemist. Kamijo told her he was going to his friend's place that night, but she knew it was a lie. Someone told her the reason he was coming to that school, which led to the condition he was now. It was not Naruto who told her that. When she met him, the boy looked like he was hiding something. He did not say anything and always tried to avoid her questions. The only answer he gave her was something like, "I'm sorry, I don't know about that either," or, "Can you ask about something else, Index?" Knowing she would not get any satisfactory answer from the boy, Index tried to ask the red-haired magician who brought her out from the building. Unfortunately for her, that person, too, did not want to tell her anything. He left her and Himagami after dropping them at this hospital. She had not seen that person since. That left her with only one option. Ask the long-haired girl in Miko outfit. She learned a lot of things from her. Her name was Himagami Isa, also known as Deep Blood. She told her that the red-haired magician and the black-haired boy came there because they thought she needed to be rescued. She told Index everything she saw and experienced that night up until the part where she lost consciousness after getting a direct hit from the alchemist, who used his Ars Magna to kill her. Index looked at the boy on the bed. Index, why do you have a scary look on your face? That's not how you greet a patient, you know." Kamijo chuckled nervously before continuing. "Don't tell me you're going to bite this Kamijo-san's head again. Ow. That hurts. Index, stop it, stop it." And that was the time when the door of his room suddenly jerked open. "Did I just interrupt a hospital bed scene between you two?" The moment he asked them that, Index immediately let Kamiju's head go. From her expression, she was still angry with Kamijo for some reason. He had lied to her, made her feel worried, and got himself hurt so badly that he needed to be hospitalized for days, all in a single night. But still, the nun did not say anything or complain about that. It seemed that Index did just like a wise man had said. When we truly care for someone, their mistakes will never change our feelings because it's the mind that gets angry but the heart still cares. Meanwhile, Naruto stepped into the room, ignoring what he saw. Index biting Kamijo Tuma's head was nothing new for him. He now considered it to be a normal thing. He would not make any comments about it, since it was kind of amusing for him to see the strange relationship the two had. "Anyway, it seems you've finally regained consciousness, Kamijo," Naruto said as he took a seat beside Kamiju's bed. "I thought you wouldn't get up any time soon. After all, you got your arm sliced off from your body that night." His words reminded the level 0 Esper of the unfortunate event happened that night. He remembered how the alchemist cut off his arm. He remembered the fact he kept moving toward despite all the pain he felt at that moment. And most importantly, he remembered how he won his fight against the alchemist. He looked to his right and asked himself a very important question. What was that thing coming out of my hand? Kamijo did not know the answer. He could not remember anything that happened after the alchemist's defeat, so that meant he had no way to know what conversation Naruto and the dragon had on that night. As that question occupied Kamiju's mind, Naruto tapped the boy's shoulder twice. It was the right shoulder where his wound previously was. This act alone was enough to wake him up from his reveries. You're lucky that frog-faced doctor is very good with this kind of job. He really holds up the reputation he has, doesn't he? You didn't feel hurt when I hit you just now, right? You should thank him later, Naruto told Kamijo. He said you can go home as soon as you wake up, meaning you don't have to stay here any longer than necessary. Oh, and he also said this to me. That boy's injuries get more and more interesting each time he comes here. I wonder what kind of injury he'll show me the next time he end up in this place again. As she heard Naruto's last few words, Index was ready to leap into Kamiju's head and chomp it. She would never forgive him again if, one day, Kamijo got himself in worse condition than this time. Was there anything worse than getting his arm cut off from his body? It was too bad Index did not have a lot knowledge about fighting and injuries. Someone in that field of expertise would be able to tell her a lot of worse conditions could happen to one's body, especially if the opponent used magic or esper power. I can go home now? That sounds great, Kamijo said with a mix of surprise and happiness in his voice. He then remembered something. Do you know where I could find Himagami? You know, the girl in Miko outfit we met in restaurant before. I need to say thanks and discuss another thing with her. Naruto and Index nodded their heads. They knew where she was. Actually, they did not have to go very far since the Miko was still in this hospital. Although she seemed worried about Kamiju's condition, she had not made any move to actually enter this room. Naruto and Index had tried to convince her that was alright, but she always found a way to decline that. In the end, she looked like a stalker going around her crush without doing anything else. What a pity. I think she is. Index did not have to finish her sentence as Naruto continued for her. In front of this room, Naruto finished. Hey, Himagami, stop hiding there and come here. Kamijo has already woken up and wants to see you. The sound of a surprised gasp came from the other side of the door. Without looking at the person herself, they knew whose voice that was. The owner of said voice was none other than the long-haired girl in red and white Miko garments. There was a slight pause before the door of Kamiju's hospital room opened slowly. The next moment, they saw the familiar figure of the Miko girl. Today, she was still wearing her usual attire. Did she have no other choice of clothes? They wondered. Gee, good morning. The girl greeted everyone in the room as she bowed her head like a traditional Japanese person would do. Strangely, Index followed her gesture and bowed her head too. It seemed the girl was already infatuated with Japanese culture, despite having living here for no more than 2 weeks. Or, rather, she got influenced by the girl in Miko outfit since she was the only one she could talk to other than Kamijo, who had just regained consciousness, and Naruto, who went missing quite often. She did not know where he was going, but the nun did not want to ask him that. That was called prying into someone else's business, and that was not something she wanted to do, especially to her friends. Ah. Kamijo scratched the back of his head and said, I want to thank you for saving my life with your body back then. I was so surprised you're willing to. Wait, did I say something wrong? Kamijo asked as he noticed the different expressions on each person's face around him. First, he noticed Naruto was giving him a strange look. His eyes looked like a wild beast trying to catch its prey. His grin did not help to ease Kamiju's nervousness at all. It seemed as if the blonde was holding himself back from saying something that was not going to end up well for him. Kamijo gulped. This is bad, definitely bad. On his left side, Index growled as she muttered something like, Tuma, first you did that kind of things with that short hair, and now with this long hair. Even though Kamijo knew that Index was referring to Makoto and Himagami respectively, he did not know the reason of her thinking like that. And lastly, Kamijo looked at Himagami. She was fidgeting her fingers and her face was tinged with red color. It seemed only the level 0 Esper who did not know the reason of that blush on her face. Such misfortune. Even with that innocent look on your face, you're hiding ulterior motives, aren't you, Kamijo? Naruto's question made the boy widen his eyes in surprise. His words, however, had different effects on both girls. Inwex. Stowp, it huwts. Kamijo was not able to pronounce his words correctly as the nun bit his head while pinching his cheeks with both hands. It was a new experience for him, but definitely not a good one. Himagami finally said something after her too formal morning's greeting. It's me who should thank you for saving my life. If it were not you, I would have. Her voice trailed off as she remembered the night when she almost lost her life. Anyway, thanks again for your help, and I'm sorry to ask this, but since Aureolus had died that night, you don't have a place to live, right? After a brief moment of silence, Himagami responded to Kamijo Tuma's question. She gave him a small glare as she began to speak up. If you think that way of my body and want to make me live together with you, I'd have to forget all your kindness and get angry with you, she said while blushing madly. The blonde boy's laughter filled the room, muffling the sound of Kamiju's scream as he was being bitten by the angry nun once again. Index-san, could you please stop your strange habit to bite this Kamijo-san's head? It's unhealthy for someone who's still in recovering state, you know? Kamijo wailed like a child. His words, however, were able to stop the nun enough for them to be able to have a normal conversation again. So, what do you have in mind when you asked her that, Kamijo? Naruto waited him to answer the question, only to find out that Kamijo was having cold sweat all over his face right then. You really want to make her move to your house and live together with, despite already have Index stay there, don't you? Wait. Stop glaring at me like that. Both of you. Kamijo tried to defend himself from the two girls near his bedside. Hastily, he answered Naruto's question using the first thought that came up to his mind. I wanted to ask if Himagami wants to live with Kamui-sensei. Yeah, that's it, Kamui-sensei. Well, isn't that great? Now I can't make fun of him anymore, Naruto mumbled under his breath while looking through the window on his side. May I know who is this, Kamui-sensei, and what kind of a person she is? Everyone looked at the Miko, a person who rarely spoke unless necessary, as she asked her question. This time, the one who answered was Index. I know her, Index said as she raised her hand like an elementary student who was excited to answer her teacher's question. She is a very nice and kind person who has short, bright pink hair, and is about this tall. Index moved her hand about 135 centimeters off the ground when she said that last part of her sentence to give a rough description about Kamiju's homeroom teacher. I thought you were in high school, Kamijo? Naruto asked, getting a confused look from the others. From Index's description just now, your teacher is a 12-year-old girl. Well, please don't mind her height, or childish personality. Actually, she is the most caring teacher to her students that I know of. I doubt there's another person like her around here. That's why I think it'd be safe to leave Himagami with her. Kamijo paused for a moment before saying with a slightly lower voice, though, I think she'll force you to join our school as a student. Does it mean I will get into the same class with you? Yeah, I think so, Kamijo replied the Miko's question nonchalantly, missing the shine that appeared in her eyes. Okay, she nodded her head after making her decision, I'll live with her from now on. It's good to hear that the problem has been solved, Naruto said, gaining everyone's attention. In that case, I'll take my leave now. I want to meet your teacher, but I've something else to do. Maybe next time, okay. After he said that, Naruto stood up from his chair and walked toward the door. He waved his hand at the three occupants of Kamiju's hospital room while saying, see ya later. The three could only wonder as to where he was going to. Naruto did not tell them, and they knew he would not, even if they asked him. He was someone with that kind of personality, in their opinions. Several hours had passed since Naruto left Kamijo Tuma's hospital room. When he told them that he had something else to do, he was referring to the activity he always did each and every day since his fated meeting with the dragon. He did not actually believe all of what it had said to him. However, Naruto would not deny the fact that the dragon had given some valuable information. He spent all his free time searching for any clues he could get. From what he learned, at least one thing of what the dragon had told him was correct. The board of directors. They were a group of people who were holding the highest position in Academy City, only under the board chairman, Aleister Crowley. This group consisted of 12 people with absolute authority within the city of Espers. It was public knowledge that most, if not all, of them were directly involved in the dark side of the city. Naruto would not feel shocked if he found out that either one of its members, all of them, or only the board chairman himself, were the culprits behind the appearance of that dragon from Kamijo Tuma's right hand. And more importantly, his second life, Naruto pondered. He had no real evidence about it, but the blonde had an incline as to who was behind all of this. It was impossible for a dangerous person like him to suddenly wake up in the middle of a secret facility without any real reason behind it. There must be a person, or maybe an unknown group, behind his second awakening. Naruto knew he had died 20 years ago. Or rather, had been completely shut down. That was the more appropriate term. Only the higher-ups of Academy City had the kind of authority to start up the project that had ended 20 years ago. His project, a hated and despicable project named Project Naruto. That time, during the war between magic and science faction, he was a weapon of mass destruction. His name told it all. How did it come to be like that? What did his code name, Naruto, stand for? He did not want to think about it. If he could, he wanted to remove it from his mind. He wanted to delete all the unnecessary information that remained in his brain. He wanted to wipe it for all of eternity. He did not want to remember what happened back then. He wanted to forget it all. However, using this filthy name in his everyday life was a reminder for him. A reminder of his dark past. Naruto started to regret his decision introducing that name to Index and Kamijo. If he chose another name, a fake name, perhaps, he would not be forced to use it like he did now. He would not have to stay reminded of his purpose each and every time someone called his name. The purpose as to why he was created. Maybe, the term created was not exactly true. Even with their seemingly unlimited scientific power, Academy City still had not been able to create a human. Though, making a clone was an easy thing to do for those mad scientists. The reason behind it was because cloning was a process of decoding one's DNA map and remaking it using the existing data found inside. That being said, Naruto was not created by people from science faction in the first place. However, it still left him with many questions. If that was the case, then, who was he? He could not be sure, but he believed the scientists had erased some, if not all his memories to make sure the project was a success. Screw that. I don't want to remember it anymore. I've changed now. I'm not my past self anymore. This time, he was different. He did not know whether his change of view of this world was controlled by someone else, or it was because he still had some of his sanity left. Those questions were the ones that drove him to do his research. He wanted to know all and everything that happened in this city, especially if it had some kind of relations with his existence. Even if he had to join the dark side of this city to find it out, Naruto would not hesitate. Even if he had to leave his new friends, he would not look back. However, if he had to oppose or kill his new friends, he was not sure the current him could do just that. For now, that was his final decision. He would not change his mindset about this matter. His determination to find out about this problem was greater than anything else. As he walked through the busy streets of Academy City, Naruto noticed someone he knew. A short-haired girl wearing Tokiwadai Middle School uniform stood before a pet shop. Trying to forget his thoughts from just a minute ago, Naruto decided to greet her. Maybe talking with her could relieve some of his stress. With that thought in mind, Naruto walked toward her direction and tapped her shoulder once he got there. "Hey, evil lightning girl, what are you doing here?" Naruto asked, gaining the girl's attention as she turned her body to face him. Before she could say anything, Naruto continued to speak while grinning. "You didn't think about stealing those cute animals, did you?" However, the response he got from her did not go as expected. "Who are you?" asks Misaka as she tilted her head in confusion. "I'm sorry, but I can't remember if we have met before," says Misaka as Misaka bows her head, expressing her apologies. Naruto was confused. The girl before him was definitely that girl he had met before. If he remembered correctly, her name was Misaka Makoto, an esper who excelled in anything related with lightning. "You're not Misaka Makoto. Are you her twin? Because both of you look exactly the same, except for that goggles you wear, of course."
"Oh, you are referring to Oni-sama," replies Misaka as she nods her head twice. She replied immediately, but her words were somehow vague. "Although she is not her twin, you can refer Misaka as Oni-sama's sister," says Misaka as Misaka tries to explain the complicated relationship between her and Oni-sama to you.
"I'm starting to have a headache here." Naruto rubbed his temples and tried to change their conversation. "So, what are you doing here? Do you want to buy a pet?" Naruto kindly asked her, but she looked down and shook her head. "No, not really," replies Misaka. "Then, you can just go inside and play with them, right? I'm sure the shop owner wouldn't mind if you do just that." "It is impossible for Misaka to do that," says Misaka. "Misaka has a fatal defect," adds Misaka, giving additional information. Naruto gave her a puzzled look. What defect? He could not see any kind of defect on her, other than the strange way of speaking she had been using. "Misaka's body is constantly forming a weak magnetic field," explains Misaka. The human body cannot detect it, but it seems other animals can, says Misaka, trying to be helpful and letting you know more information. Naruto felt a little sorry for her. It must be painful for an animal lover like her to not being able to even touch those cute animals because her esper ability. From what he got from her explanation, Naruto concluded that the animals would be afraid, or at least be wary, of her presence and try to run away if she came too close to them. I'm sorry. Naruto gave her an apologetic look, only to get a confused expression from the girl. Why? Asks Misaka as Misaka tries to pry some information about your well-being. You do not have a concussion, do you? Asks Misaka with a concerned tone in her voice. Misaka cannot think of any reasons for you to feel sorry for her. Never mind. Naruto could not find the correct words to reply her question, so he tried to evade it. Anyway, since you can't do much with the animals here, do you have any other hobby that doesn't get interfered by your ability? Misaka's cannot have a hobby, replies Misaka sadly. She just want to stay here a little longer to spend what little time she has left, explains Misaka cryptically, so you cannot guess what she has in mind. Naruto did not understand what she was saying. There were too many questions formulating in his head to understand her. Firstly, she said, Misaka's, a plural of her name, instead of Misaka. Did she say it wrong? No, there must be some other reason. Although he could not be sure, there was a chance that there were more than one Misaka in this city. If that was the case, then, was she a clone of Misaka Makoto? Damn it, those bastards actually did something like this. Naruto gritted his teeth as he finally understood what the girl meant before. She said she had a complicated relationship with her Oni-sama. At first Naruto thought she was her twin sister, but her last sentence broke that thought. There was not only one Misaka, there were plenty of them. And the only explanation was a cloning project. Really, he needed to deal with this matter really fast. Naruto's mind drifted to the second matter. She said something about spending what little time she had left. He did not want to have pessimistic thoughts, but, from the way she worded it, he knew she was not joking around. She did not have much time left, and that was not something about her dormitory's curfew or something. She meant it literally, as if her life would end very soon. Naruto knew she would not answer him if he asked her about it, but he could not let her face this problem alone. He had a bad premonition about this. Don't worry, I'll accompany you for a while. Number. Yells Misaka as she tries to send you off. You cannot stay here because, Misaka stopped her words midway. She knew if she continued, the blonde boy before her would know about her secret, and she could not let him learn about it. It was not because she did not want to share her problem with others. It was more because a danger was awaiting her, and it was ready to swallow him altogether if he chose to stay on her side. This blonde boy might have killed by that person. The scariest person that she knew of. The most dangerous boy around. Academy City's #1. As I said before, don't worry. Naruto lightly tapped her shoulder. I'll stay on your side for a while. I don't care what you say, and even if you try to run away from me, I'll follow you. But, it is too dangerous for you to stay with Misaka, says Misaka in a concerned tone as she tries to explain her condition to you. You might lose your life if you stay with this Misaka. Just more reasons for me not to leave you alone. You. For the first time, Misaka could not reply his words readily. She looked at him for a brief moment and scowled. Fine, Misaka doesn't care what happened to you, replies Misaka as she pouts using her cheeks to show her displeased feeling. Everything that happens to you is your own problem, warns Misaka as Misaka tries to make you leave for the last time. Upon hearing her warning, Naruto just shrugged his shoulders and started another conversation with her to waste some time. Yeah, sure, whatever. Just know that I won't change my mind, Naruto said. Anyway, what kind of food do you like? Have you ever heard the food of gods? It's called ramen. The sky had turned to the black of the sea at night. The moon was in a crescent shape. It looked like a sneering mouth and its light was too weak to reach an iron bridge a distance away from the center of Academy City. With the black of the river running below as well, the area seemed to have sunken into darkness. Misaka Makoto had her hands on the handrail as she leaned her body onto it as well, staring at the distant lights of the city. Bluish-white sparks of lightning crackled around her body. She continuously let out those weak sparks as she remembered her dearest wish when she was younger. She had that wish ever since the day she learned that she was able to generate lightning from her body. A starry night with a number of sparkling stars made of her electromaster power. That was her dream before she grew up. Now, she did not feel like she had the right to have that dream anymore. She made a weak smile and muttered a single word from her small lips. Why? She really wanted to answer it, but she could not. She did not know the answer, nor did she know where to seek it. She could do nothing to prevent everything from happening. It was all my fault. She was referring to the naive decision she made few years ago. It happened when she was 10 years old. A researcher had asked her if she wanted to help people with muscular dystrophy. The researcher had said that those people might be able to be saved using her power. He told her some basic information about how one's brain worked by sending electrical signals to one's body parts. In this case, the patient's muscles. As a child, Misaka Makoto believed what the researcher had said. She wanted to take part in that experiment. She wanted to become a saving light for those people. She had wished that her power was truly able to help them out. That was how her DNA map was officially recorded into Academy City's bank. However, everything did not go as she expected it to be. Recently, Makoto learned that her DNA map had been used for something different. It had been used to create military sisters. Her DNA map was used to make 20,000 Misaka clones. If they were used as military soldiers, as weapons, Makoto might be able to take it to a certain degree, although reluctantly. But no, the sisters did not even get a life as a weapon. The purpose of their creation was solely to be killed as experimental animals. There was a project ran by Academy City's scientists. They were going to make a level 6 Esper. To do so, the Academy City's number 1 needed to kill all 20,000 sisters with different methods each. Why did it end up like this? Makoto shouted on top of her lungs. She did not care if someone heard her voice. It was too much for her to take. Because her foolish decision, the life of 20,000 individuals were sacrificed. The last time she heard about it, slightly more than 10,000 sisters had been killed. Can't I do something to stop this? That single question always appeared on her mind. Whenever she thought about it, she could only come up with one answer. However, up until this point, she could not force herself to do it. She was Academy City's number 3. She had the title of the Railgun, the Ace of Tokiwadai, and the Electric Princess. She must look strong from the outside. She had been wearing a mask all this time. It was something she had to protect at all cost. However, no one knew how she was in the inside. Deep down inside her heart, Misaka Makoto was like a piece of paper being soaked in water. She was weak, fragile, and about to disappear. Even a gentle touch might tear her. She really wanted to cry to her heart's content, but her tears never came out. How she longed for someone who would actually help her out. However, there was another problem. She was too proud to ask help from others. More correctly, she did not want anyone to get involved with her problem. It was her problem and hers alone. The one who must put an end to it was none other than she herself.
Makoto clenched her fists. I will do it tonight. I don't care if I have to die, as long as I could save them, she thought to herself.
This whole time, she had been thinking of a way to stop the experiment. The only answer she could get without involving others was to sacrifice herself. The tree diagram had predicted that the Academy City's number 1 would shift into a level 6 if he killed 128 railguns. However, they could not prepare 128 railguns.
So they took another route, which was to substitute quantity over quality.
Instead of fighting and killing hundreds strong espers, he could gain the same result if he killed 20,000 weaker ones. But, what if that calculation was wrong? What if she made them think that her value was way more below than that? The tree diagram had calculated that, if both of them fight against each other, Makoto will lose after 185 moves. However, if she deliberately make herself lose in few moves, her value would deteriorate. Those researchers would stop their experiment because they would learn that, even if he killed all 20,000 sisters, he would not shift into a level 6. Yes, that's the only way to stop this. Such misfortune, Kamijo Tuma muttered as he stepped out of a grocery store. There were 2 large paper bags on both of his hands. The level 0 Esper had just been released from the hospital a few hours ago. He should be resting to recover his condition now. He was thinking about laying lazily in front of his TV while eating some snacks. But, no, reality was not that kind to him. What he did right now was a complete opposite from what he thought he would be doing.
How did he end up doing this kind of stuff? The moment he, Index, and Heimdani arrived in front of Kamui-sensei's front door, Kamiju noticed his misfortune radar warning him. However, he could not turn back right then. He must finish what he had started before.
So he rang his teacher's apartment doorbell. When the door opened, the short, pink-haired teacher showed up and started lecturing him for slightly more than an hour. It was because he had skipped his additional summer class with her for days without any notice. However, being lectured for skipping class, although he had told her his reason was due to he got hospitalized, was not the worst thing happened to Kamijo. The moment he explained his purpose bringing Himagami Isa there, he got another lecture from his dearly teacher. This time, the session was more than 2 hours long. He was half dead after Kamui-sensei stopped her lecturing mode. The good thing was, in the end, the teacher who looked like a 12-year-old girl accepted his request. She let Himagami stay in her apartment with one condition. Next semester, Himagami must attend a high school. It was the same place where she was teaching and Kamijo was a student at. Kamui-sensei said she would arrange Himagami's transfer and she would be able to get the same class as Kamijo. Once again, Kamijo missed the sparks on the Miko's eyes when she heard that. Shortly afterward, Kamui-sensei asked Kamijo to do an errand for her. Knowing he had no rights to refuse, Kamijo could only nod his head in defeated manner. That was how he ended up buying groceries from nearby department store. As he walked back to Kamui-sensei's place, Kamijo saw that scene. He saw Makoto stood alone on the iron bridge, staring vacantly into the night sky. When he saw her, he was hesitate. He did not know whether he should go there and greet her or not.
She looked so exhausted, so different with how lively she usually was.
As he pondered what he should do, Kamijo heard it. Why did it end up like this? If he could hear it from this distance, she must be shouting so loud that her throat would hurt after. What happened to her? Kamijo thought. He made his decision. To hell with these groceries. He threw the 2 large bags down and bolted toward the iron bridge. Since he was not that close with her, he had no reason to do so. However, Kamijo did not need a reason. All he knew right now was that there was a girl who needed his help. No matter what problem she had, he could not remain silent. He would help her. Even if her problem might cost him his life, Kamijo would not hesitate. That was how Kamijo Tuma was, both before and after he lost his memories. What are you doing? Makoto looked at the boy. There was 10 meters distance between them. Strangely, the Makoto before him was the usual lively, smart-assed, and selfish Masaka Makoto. I'm free to do whatever I want wherever I want. After all, I'm the Academy City number 3, the railgun. Despite her perfect acting, Kamijo could see past her mask because it was simply too perfect. Stop that. I know you're not alright. I know something is bugging you, Kamijo said before continuing. Just tell me, I'll help you. Masaka Makoto was stunned by his words. No one had said those kind words to her before. But, he said he was going to help her. Don't make me laugh. Makoto's expression changed. She did not have her lively expression anymore. She looked like a time bomb ready to explode anytime. Don't you realize that you're a mere level 0 Esper without any kind of power? And you said you're going to help me. Such nonsense. Are you actually as stupid as you look? Kamijo felt a stab of pain in his chest. He knew he was a powerless Esper. He was an ordinary high school boy who would have a hard time when it was 1-on-2 fight, and he would definitely run away if it comes to 1-on-3. The only extraordinary thing he had was his right hand. Even then, his right hand was not overly powerful. It had its ups and downs. And Kamijo understood it all. However, I don't care. I said I will help you, and I'm not going back at my words. Stupid. Makoto muttered under her breath before asking him, do you understand what you just said? Kamijo took a step forward. He did not know what her problem was, nor did he know if he could help her. But he really meant his words. Of course, Kamijo answered as he took another step forward. Just tell me what your problem is and I swear I'll do everything I can to help you out. Makoto did not know what to say. She could only look at the boy in front of her, who was moving closer and closer. Is it all right to let him know about my problem? Could he help me putting an end to all of this? Before long, Kamijo had closed the distance between them. It was only 5 more meters before he could reach her. This is wrong. You shouldn't keep your problem alone. I can help you. No. I started this problem. I must take responsibility of it. I don't need your help, so please back off right now before you get hurt. Despite having been warned by her, Kamijo still tried to make another move forward.
Are you stupid or what? Get out of the way. Makoto yelled to Kamijo. She started to get angry and annoyed with him. She wanted to resolve this problem herself. She did not want a third party like him involved and possibly get hurt because of her.
However, Kamijo had different thought on his mind. Why are you so selfish? You know you can't solve whatever problem you have right now. If you can, you'd have finished it already instead of standing here all by yourself, Kamijo told her. Everyone has a limit. You, and everybody else, we all have our own limitations. I know you've already passed that limit, so please, let me help you. For an instant, just an instant, a surprised look appeared on Makoto's face. That look was quickly replaced with anger. You can easily said that because you don't know what my problem is. I'm the reason 10,000 sisters lost their lives. I'm the one who made 10,000 more sisters, who can do nothing but wait in line to get slaughtered like animal. It's all because of me, a person who's so stupid as to let that researcher get a hold of my DNA map. Makoto continued to vent her feelings despite knowing the boy would most likely not understand what she was saying. I'm going to fight now. I know I have no chance of winning, and will die if I keep going. But, her voice trailed as her mind clouded with her feelings. I don't care. If I have to die to save their lives, that's all right with me. Kamijo stopped his tracks. He had not grasped what her problem was. However, he was not stupid. He knew her problem was huge. He knew the lives of 20,000 people was in her hands, for one reason or another. He understood she wanted to solve this problem alone. He knew she was ready to die to do that. But he could not stop now. He could not let her sacrifice herself. I won't let you, Kamijo said as he looked straight into her eyes. I won't let you die. I see. So you don't care about the lives of 10,000 sisters, Makoto said with a dangerous tone. I want to protect them with my hands. If you're going to stop me, I won't hesitate to take you out here. This is your final warning. Get out of my way.
As she said that, bluish-white lightning started to form around her body. It was more intense than she had let out before. It seemed the ace of Tokiwadai was going to show him as to why she was called the number 3. However, Kamijo Tuma did not change his posture. He did not make an offensive position, nor did he make a defensive position. He did not even raise his right hand, the hand which held the power of Imagine Breaker.
Kamijo merely shook his head. I won't. What are you saying? I won't stop you, but I'm going with you. Makoto felt as if her breath stopped for an instant. They were not good friends, not even in friendly relationships, since every time they met, they always ended up fighting or at least, bickering. She could not understand his way of thought. Why? Why was the only word that came out from her lips. And his response was, because I care about you. Makoto lowered her head, her eyes shut tightly. A moment later, she spoke in a weak voice, barely audible enough for Kamijo to hear, but he heard it nonetheless. There's no way I'd accept something like that. I don't deserve those words anymore. As she spoke, a lone tear came out from her eye, trailing down her soft cheek and falling onto the ground. She wiped her eyes with the back of her palm and yelled. Just shut up. I'm not the good person you think I am. After she said that, a condensed ball of lightning formed in her right hand. The ball appeared to be holding too much power, making it look unstable from the outside. Small sparks of electricity came out from the ball every once in a while as she prepared herself to use it. The next instant, Makoto threw it in Kamiju's direction without waiting the black-haired boy to prepare himself. The spherical electricity traveled through the air at the speed of light. It was aimed at Kamiju's chest area. Since it was made by the strongest electromaster in the city, it had enough power to knock a normal person out for days. Naruto followed her. He was a small distance away behind the girl who tried to escape from him. The reason was not because Naruto was stalking her. It was not because she had stolen something from him. It was also not because she was a member of the board of directors, some people he really wanted to have a talk with. The girl who had the exact same appearance with Misaka Makoto, except for the green goggles she wore, was a clone of her. She was the girl whom Naruto met in front of a pet shop that evening. And she had already told him so many times not to follow her. She had warned him bad things might happen if he kept following her. Naruto did not listen to her words, however. He was not an ignorant person who only wanted to do things that he thought were right. He was doing what he was for an entirely different reason. He knew the girl was hiding something from him, and he wanted to know what it was. He didn't want to because he liked to pry into someone else's personal life, but because he had a bad premonition about what was happening. For some reason, He knew she was going to lose her life if he did not stay longer. He wanted to help her, even if she would hate him for it. "Hey, Masaka Imouto," Naruto called at the girl who was walking in front of him before continuing. "I can call you that, right? Since you're technically her sister, I don't think there's a problem with that. You can call Masaka with whatever nickname you want," says Masaka as she thinks about her nice new nickname. "But, Masaka wants to tell you not to follow her for the last time," says Masaka as she uses a slightly higher voice to emphasize her point. "And I've already told you that I won't do that." That was the only conversation they had before Masaka Imouto stopped running from him. She had arrived at her destination. According to the plan, this place was the last place she would visit. She would not live past the night, and her life would end here. She was running out of time now. They were at a train switchyard. There was an area about the size of a school's grounds that was covered in the same gravel as a train track. Over 10 rails were lined up next to each other. Surrounding the entire switchyard were large numbers of metal containers used on freight trains. The containers were piled up like building blocks, rivaling 3-story buildings in height. As all students had to be back from school by the time the last train left, the switchyard was quickly abandoned. The electric lights used for work were turned off and there were no houses nearby, leaving next to no illumination in the area. Naruto looked around and noticed someone else was there, hidden behind a metal container. "HMPH. Didn't they tell you to come here by yourself?" Now that he knows what's about to happen, I have no other choices but to kill him. A chilling voice suddenly greeted them. A boy stepped out from that darkness. The first impression he gave off was white. He had white hair color, skin as white as a cloud, and was wearing white clothes and shoes to complete the picture. The only exception was his fiery red eyes that looked like those of a predator's, ready to catch prey without giving any chances to its prey to run away. Naruto looked at him and frowned. Despite wearing white attributes, which usually describes a pure soul, a saint, or a holy person, this boy did not show any sign of goodness. Instead, he was giving off a dark, terrifying aura. A white darkness might be the most proper term to tell his appearance. And that was the time when Naruto saw it. The boy had something in his mouth. He was chewing the object like a half-eaten lollipop. However, Naruto knew it was not one. It was something he knew so well from his dark past. The person was chewing a finger, a human finger made of bone, flesh, and blood. He is insane, Naruto thought, emotions running through his mind. Even when he was a bloodthirsty frontliner weapon of Academy City during the last war between the magic and science faction, he had never done some crazy things like that, nor did he want to know the taste of a human finger. If he remembered correctly, the worst thing he ever did back then was turning a whole village in England into ashes. Even so, he was not proud about it. He did not feel pleasure from doing it. He even started regretting his action after he met that person there. An all-white wearing albino guy with a crazy personality, Naruto said in a monotone. "You must be that person. Academy City's #1, accelerator." Said person spat out the object he had in his mouth before. He raised his foot and slammed it onto the ground, crushing it without hesitation. "TCH, it doesn't taste good anymore. I need a new one," Accelerator said with disgust. He did not give Naruto a response as he walked a few steps forward and stopped about 10 meters away from Naruto and Masaka Imouto. A pair of fiery, red eyes glowered toward Naruto's direction. However, the blonde did not say anything. Both Naruto and Accelerator were only exchanging glares without making any movements. It was Accelerator who made the first move. He bent his legs slightly backward and kicked a rock about the size of an apple. Such was something a bored person would do. However, it was different when the person who did that was the Academy City's #1. He was the strongest known esper around the city. Even though he only touched the rock without exerting much power, it traveled through the air at a speed no normal human eyes could follow. It went straight toward its target, which was Masaka Imouto's forehead. At that speed, one did not have to make any calculations to presume a heavy injury would definitely occur once the rock hit its target. Masaka Imouto could only widen her eyes in surprise. She knew she was going to die tonight. However, she did not know that she would die this soon. She knew she had no chance against the strongest level 5 there was. She knew the rock would go through her skull, ending her life in an instant. She knew she would not feel any pain or suffering. But why did she feel this kind of feeling now? Why did she feel that someone would actually save her from her inevitable fate? Was this a normal thing that happened to someone who was about to die? She did not know the answer of those questions, so she slowly closed her eyes and prepared herself to face death. Her attack did not miss its target. There was no way the Academy City's number 3 could make a mistake in her aiming, especially when her opponent was a powerless level 0 who did not even make a stance to defend himself. The lightning ball struck Kamijo Tuma's body as he tried to close the distance between him and Makoto. It hit his left chest, right where his heart was. The high voltage of electric current ran through his entire body. But this boy was not an ordinary person. He was someone who had experienced worse things than getting electrocuted. He had fought a fire-using magician who could make 1,000-degree flame attacks at will. He had fought an alchemist who could transform his thought into reality. He had even won that fight despite having his right arm sliced off. And it was proved once more. This time, he got hit by a ball of lightning thrown by a level 5 Electromaster. He knew he could negate that last attack by simply raising his right hand. The power of Imagine Breaker resided in his right hand could make any kind of attack, other than physical, of course, disappear when it made contact with it. However, he didn't use the Imagine Breaker. He did not raise his hand to prevent being hurt by the attack. Instead, he let it hit him with its full force. The attack did not render him unconscious, though. Kamijo attained burn marks all over his body, but he didn't mind those injuries. He was standing perfectly still before starting to advance toward his attacker once again. He still said nothing. The only thing he did was force his shaky legs to keep moving. Step by step, he closed the distance between him and Makoto. His gaze met hers as he walked. There was no hesitation in his eyes. The only thing anyone could see was sheer and utter willpower. He was determined to help her. He wanted to lend his hand, even after she blatantly refused his offer. He did not want this girl to sacrifice her life. He simply wished that the girl before him would not give up everything she had, which of course included her life. So he ignored the pain and kept moving. Stop it. You don't understand. If everyone can be saved with my death, isn't it a wonderful thing? She was yelling at him, trying to make him stop. She just wanted to put an end to her problem. She wanted to do it all by herself, not wanting people to get hurt. Why did he keep trying to stop her? Why did he still want to help her even after she had so badly hurt him just mere moments ago? Can't he understand her feelings? Can't he just stop and let her do what she wanted? Getting overwhelmed by her own emotions, Makoto's body was soon covered with high-pressured electricity. She couldn't think straight. The words that came out from his mouth turned down every little bit of courage she had mustered before. I don't know what your problem was, but please, let me help you. She needed someone's help. He was the only person who was willing to help her, despite having not fully understood what her problem was. Because I care about you. It was the first time someone said such kind words to her. She was touched by them. She knew he was serious when he said that, and she knew she should have accepted his help in the first place. However, her ego prevented her asking for help. Her stubbornness made her unable to say that out loud. She would rather take him down in the most unbefitting of situations than allow him to help her. And it happened. A large number of thunderbolts struck Kamiju's already weakened body. The boy could not keep doing what he had done the previous time. This time, he fell onto the hard asphalt of the iron bridge. That was the moment when Kamijo Tuma lost consciousness. Seeing the boy not making any movements, Makoto let out a huge sigh. Though, it was of both relief and regret. She felt relieved because the only obstacle which blocked her way to deal with her problem had now been eliminated. On the other hand, she regretted what she had done to him. A number of questions appeared on her mind. What if that last attack killed him? What would have happened if she had accepted his help? Could everything have gotten better if she had? Was her decision the correct one? Something made Misaka Makoto stop questioning herself. It was the scene before her eyes. She saw the boy who was laying on the ground twitch his fingers. He started regaining consciousness as he used both of his hands to prop his body up. Once he got enough strength to lift his body, he limply walked toward her direction once again. It took him only a few seconds to close the remaining distance. Stop. Stop already, Makoto said as tears started to form in her brown-colored eyes. The boy didn't hear her. He had grown tired of listening to her pleas for something he wouldn't do. He knew what he should do and no one was going to stop him from doing it, including her. He would just walking and walking until he reached his goal. The distance between them after Kamijo had regained consciousness was not like the distance between two enemies. It was not the distance of close friends, either. It was closer than that. Kamijo stood in front of Masaka Makoto and suddenly wrapped his arms around her body. He tightly hugged the girl and gave her a few light pats on the back. It's warm, she thought. However, despite getting such a sudden hug from him, she still had her pride. Her response was predictable. She did the exact same thing any normal girl in her position would do. She widened her eyes and tried to escape from his embrace. Kamijo did not let her go. He tightened his embrace and said, "Don't worry. Everything will be all right, I promise."
Upon hearing those words, she could not hold her tears back anymore. She let him hug her small figure and started crying like a small child, it having been too much for her to endure any longer. She had been holding the unbearable feelings in her chest for too long, so long that even she didn't know who she was anymore. She knew it was stupid, but she had never told anyone about her problems before. For those brief moments she was in Kamiju's arms, she thought that for this only moment, she could pour all her feelings out. For now, she just wanted to cry to her heart's content, something she hadn't done for a long time. She did not want to think about her problems, she just wanted to forget all of them for an instant. However, it did not change the fact that she had unfinished things to do. "I must go and stop this," Makoto said. Although her voice sounded a bit shaky, it was filled with determination. She truly wanted to put an end to the experiment.
Kamijo removed his arms from her and let go. As he did that, he whispered to her ear. "Sure. But, I'm going with you." Knowing her refusal meant nothing to him, Makoto could do nothing but nod her head. Together, they went to the next sister's kill area. Almost a minute had passed since she closed her eyes. Masaka Imouto was confused. Why did she still alive? Why did she still have her consciousness? She should have died by now. It was impossible for human body to take an attack at that speed without receiving any injuries. It was also impossible for Academy City's #1 to stop the attack. Her curiosity got the best of her and she slowly opened her eyes. Once her brown-colored pupils showed themselves, she saw a person standing before her. It was the boy she met that evening. It was the same person who followed her despite her warnings. He was standing right in front of her, and the aura around him was not a pleasant one. It wasn't at all like the one he had previously. Why did he save her? What was his reason to protect her? She was just a guinea pig used by those scientists. She was only a part of the experiment to shift accelerator into a level 6. She had no right to be saved. Her life's purpose had already decided the day she was created. Oh, come the hell on. What's wrong with you? I'm just trying to have some fun here. Upon hearing Accelerator's remark, Naruto narrowed his eyes. From the way the boy in front of him spoke, he seemed used to this kind of thing. He looked like a serial killer who was going to take his next kill. But, on the other hand, he also looked like a child who had his toy taken away from him. How was that even possible? Naruto had no idea. He just glared at the white boy and asked, "What are you saying? Don't mess around. Everyone's life is precious. I'm just trying to help her. There's nothing wrong with that." Instead of giving Naruto a reply, Accelerator let out a creepy laugh. It sounded like a maniac who just heard the funniest joke in the world. The #1 Esper had a crazy look on his face as he finally started to speak. That sounded like a line from a hero in children's books. He let out a scoff before saying, "As if something like that really exists. The world doesn't work like that. It's filled with a bunch of villains, except each has their own way of thinking." After he said that, Accelerator used his next attack. This time, he did not use a small rock like before. Instead, using his legs, he sent 2 unused pieces of railway toward Masaka Imouto's direction. Those long and heavy objects moved at terrifying speed. It was much faster than the flying rock he sent before. This time, Masaka Imouto did not even have enough time to close her eyes. However, the heavens seemed to be on her side. With her eyes opened, she saw everything happen during that split of a second. The 2 train rails melted, appearing to have been burned by something Mikasa Imouto was unsure of. Before the scorching hot residual liquid reached them, it was evaporated into the air, creating a very large amount of smoke around them. The boy in front of her did not seem to do anything. However, Masaka Imouto knew it was his doing. Even when being moved at such high speed, it was nigh impossible for the metallic rails to disintegrate like that. This city was well known for its advanced technology.
Its superiority among every other place in this world was also applied for things like this. Those were made of a very high-quality metal alloy, something that could withstand practically everything, including incredibly high temperatures. It was shocking enough for her to see them melted. She still couldn't believe her eyes, them having shown her something impossibly evaporating and all that.
What he just did was definitely not normal. It was easily classified as a level 5's doing, maybe even more.
Just who was this blonde boy? Masaka Imouto had tried to find some information about him using Masaka's network, but she could find none. It seemed as if he had no saved data in Academy City's database, or, perhaps, it had been erased for some reason. "You," Naruto said with a cold tone. "I don't care if you're number 1 or anything. I've already told you not to mess with someone's life, but you ignored my words. So what, are you going to stop me? You want to get angry with me? Holding a grudge against me? Try to kill me, maybe?" Accelerator spat out those questions with the same tone he used before. Tens of thousands have done the same thing, and none of them are alive anymore to feel that way. As soon as he heard those words pass Accelerator's lips, Naruto did not hold himself anymore. He manipulated the air around him and sent a wave of high-temperature air toward Accelerator's direction. It was hot enough to leave burn marks when it made a contact with human skin.
That kind of attack, however, was futile against Accelerator.
Academy City's number 1 Esper's ability was vector manipulation. He could change any vectors around his body at will. That was how he sped up the movement of the 2 attacks he did before. He manipulated the object's speed to the max to make such a dangerous, yet easy to predict attack. However, he had one more ability. It was his favorite. Actually, it was not another ability of his. Up until this time, Academy City was not able to create an Esper with dual Esper abilities. His ability was a derived ability of his vector manipulation. Reflection. It was the ability which made Accelerator feared, even among the higher-ups of the city. He was able to reflect most, if not all, attacks launched at him back toward his attacker. Accelerator had reached the point where he didn't need to think, or make any calculations, to use his reflection. It was always active, even when he was asleep.
Even if a nuclear bomb were to fall onto him, he would not die. That was the Academy City number 1, Accelerator. Seeing an attack being directed at him, Accelerator did nothing. He did not try to stop it, nor did he try to dodge. He let Naruto's attack reach him, and just a moment before it touched his body, the wave got reflected and went back toward the blonde. If he were an ordinary person, Naruto would show a shocked expression while having his own attack strike him down.
However, he was different. He had plenty battle experience from his past. He knew everything was possible during a battle. So, getting his attack reflected back at him was not something so shocking for him. He made the same attack and launched it toward Accelerator. Naruto let the 2 attacks collide against each other as he wrapped his arm around Masaka Imouto's waist and jumped out of the way.
He did that on purpose. He brought her to a nearby, safe place to stay. Naruto knew a battle with Academy City's strongest was not going to end smoothly. He did not even know if he could defeat his opponent this time. However, he wanted to ensure the girl's safety first. "Stay here, don't go out." Naruto whispered those words into her ears, and immediately afterward, he left the dumbfounded girl alone. The girl could only watch his back as the blonde boy headed to the place where Accelerator was. "So, you didn't try to run away, huh?" Accelerator asked Naruto when he found out the boy was standing before him again. "Actually, I'd prefer you to run away so I can have some fun hunting you down." He said that and kicked off the ground. Due his power in manipulating vectors, Accelerator closed the distance between him and Naruto in an instant. Accelerator swung his fist, aiming for the blonde's head. However, Naruto did not stay still. He dodged the punch and slammed his own into Accelerator's stomach. At such a short distance, the option to dodge or block was not present for the Academy City number 1.
That was actually not a good idea. If he knew about Accelerator's Esper power, Naruto would not do that. However, at this moment he still did not know as to what his opponent's power was. And this time, he experienced it himself. As his fist connected to Accelerator's stomach, a sudden force sent Naruto's body to fly backwards. The blonde felt surprised but did not lose his calm. He flipped his body midair and landed with both feet.
Naruto quickly shifted his gaze as to where Accelerator previously was. Only to see his opponent had already closed their distance once again. He could only widen his eyes as he saw Accelerator spin his body and send a spinning kick that hit his stomach, sending him skidding a few meters behind his previous location. Naruto let out a groan. It was not because he felt any pain. It was more because of the annoyance he had upon seeing the wicked grin on his opponent's face. First, he sent my attack back at me. Naruto began to analyze his opponent's power. And just now, I was sure my punch would hit him, but I got hit by an unknown force instead. He started to understand what Accelerator's power was. He could launch that rock, railways, and even his own body at such high speed using only slight amount of force. As he tried to combine what little information he got from his opponent, Naruto dodged a series of attacks sent by Accelerator toward him. At first, it was only a barrage of flying train railways like before, but, eventually, Accelerator sent larger object like heavy metal containers. They flew toward Naruto and were about to crush his body. However, the blonde knew that something so minuscule as flying, heavy metal containers wouldn't kill him.
Naruto raised the temperature around his body and launched himself toward Accelerator. He went through the large metal container as he kept accelerating toward his opponent, leaving a hole about the size of human body on it.
As he bolted toward Accelerator, Naruto pulled his arm back, ready to slam it toward the white boy's head. Upon seeing such a gesture from Naruto, Accelerator did nothing but let out a wicked smile. He had no intention to dodge his opponent's punch. Just like the one he launched before, it was going to get reflected and send the blonde flying backwards. That was what he thought. However, Naruto had analyzed his opponent's power by now. He knew his fist would not deal any damage to this person. Naruto had come to a conclusion about Accelerator's esper ability, speed manipulation and reflection. Well, only one of them seemed to be correct. Though, it was close enough for someone who had just been fighting for few minutes. He thought it was speed manipulation because none of Accelerator's attacks show more than the change of an object's velocity. If Accelerator were to use any other kind of attack, Naruto would have come up with different conclusion. Probably. The distance between Accelerator and the unknown blonde esper, a person who was able to fight toe-to-toe with the Academy City's strongest, was only 5 meters. Misaka Imouto peeked from the place where Naruto left her before. The bottom half of her body was still hidden behind the large number of metal containers. Only the upper part of her body was visible from the outside. Naruto had told her not to go out, but she was curious. People often said that curiosity killed the cat, making it fortunate she had not been killed up until this point. After all, the two combatants seemed to enjoy their fight too much. They weren't paying attention to their surroundings. Misaka Imouto still had not figured out why the blonde saved her life. She could not see any reason behind his actions. He said everyone's lives are precious, but hers and the rest of the sisters' lives weren't, were they? At least, that was what she learned from the scientists who had taken part in this experiment. That way of thinking had been implanted to every single Misaka's brain before they were even allowed to begin their own life as mere experimental animals. That was why she took the liberty to take a peek of this fight. It was the next moment when she suddenly widened her eyes in surprise. It was the first time she saw the Academy City's #1, Accelerator, receive a direct hit. On his face, it slammed him into the ground harshly. How's that even possible? She thought. Whoa, that's a cool move. Misaka Imouto turned her body to the left to see whose voice she heard just now. She was facing two newcomers. One of them was a black-haired boy, which she identified as one of the many level 0 espers in the city. It seemed he was the one who let out the comment from his mouth. Misaka Imouto did not know what his name was, but she was not going to ask him, especially at this moment. And for the second person, Misaka Imouto knew her very well. The girl who was looking at the fight between Accelerator and Naruto while biting her lower lip was Misaka Makoto. Why does the original come to this place? Asks Misaka as Misaka tilts her head in confusion. The original knows she's not supposed to come here in the first place, right? Makoto turned, facing her little sister. She looked at her and her stiff expression became softer. A weak smile formed on her small lips as she started opening her mouth and speaking. I'm glad you're still alive. Her words, however, made Misaka Imouto confused even more. Is the annoying blonde who's fighting Accelerator the one who saved you? Yes, he saved Misaka even though Misaka had told him so many times not to get involved with her problem, says Misaka as she nods her head. agreeing to your assumption. Misaka doesn't understand why he did it, though, says Misaka as she has a questioning look on her face to show her confusion. Kamijo wanted to ask many questions he had in mind, but held himself from doing so. The fighting scene in front of their eyes had become more interesting. The fact that Makoto had a clone of herself, and to top that off, she had a strange habit of speaking, died off a bit from his current thoughts. That being said, Kamijo focused his sight to the two boys who were fighting now. KH. Accelerator used his thumb to wipe a trail of blood coming out from the corner of his mouth. This is the first time I've ever bled because of a fight.
Naruto said nothing upon hearing his words. The blonde boy had already known the weakness of his opponent, so he was feeling a bit at ease at this moment. Though, he still stayed alert. The one before him was known as number 1. Naruto knew Accelerator must have something else up his sleeve. It was only natural that Accelerator wouldn't be defeated so easily.
Knowing his opponent wouldn't reply, Accelerator continued. Interesting. You're able to see past my reflection despite our fight has just started. You're pulling out your fist just a moment before my reflection went off, making me the one who takes damage instead. Accelerator ended his small explanation. It was only a brief moment before he let out some words that were able to make Naruto freeze on his spot. Academy City's first creation is truly an interesting person to have a fight with, so let's take this up a notch. Naruto's eyes went wide. This person knew something about his past.
How could that be? That was impossible for him to know about his secret. The only possible answer that appeared on Naruto's mind was the board of directors. The group of people who controlled almost everything going inside this city must have told him. They were the ones responsible for everything, and anything happened here. Despite feeling surprised, Naruto did not show much change of expression on his face.
He faced Accelerator and asked, "What do you know?" "Ku." Accelerator started laughing. On the other hand, Naruto felt something bad was about to happen. Kuka. Naruto could feel the wind around where they were change. It was as if the night's wind was being controlled by some unknown force. Kukaki. Accelerator's power allowed him to change the vectors of anything he touched. Motion, heat, electricity. Whatever kind of power it was, he could freely control it as long as it had a vector. That meant if he could grasp the vector of the wind flowing through the atmosphere, he could bring the motion of all the wind flowing throughout the entire world into his hands. Kukakikakokakakukakikakokakaka. Accelerator lifted his hands above his head. It seemed as if he was trying to touch the moon. With a roar, the flow of wind started to swirl around his hands. A large atmospheric swirl formed above the boy's head. It looked like a black hole had opened, ready to swallow everything inside the mass of destruction. Gravel in the area was swept up within it, and that giant swirl of destruction let out a joyous cry. If he were to throw it, no. Naruto shook his head. He knew he could easily avoid being hit by that attack. But, what will happen then? The attack would strike the city, and Naruto was sure an attack of that scale would not leave the place unscathed. It would be utterly destroyed, taking many innocent lives together with it.
What should he do? He only held the power to manipulate heat and temperature around himself. He had no defensive techniques to block or even negate the kind of attack Accelerator was about to use. "Looks like you need a helping hand there," the familiar voice of a certain black-haired boy said. When he turned his body, he realized Kamijo was there, walking in his direction. Behind Kamijo, Naruto could see two girls who had the exact same appearance looking this way. One of them was Misaka Makoto and the other was Misaka Imouto. Both of them had worried expressions on their cute faces.
Imagine Breaker. With that power, Accelerator attack would not deal as much destruction as he would have. With that power, the wind would die and stop rampaging. However, Naruto shook his head as he raised one of his hands, making a stop gesture toward the other boy.
"Stay away from this, all of you." It was not a request, it was more of a command for them. There was no hesitation in Naruto's voice. It seemed as if he had planned to do something else to stop the attack of Academy City's number 1.
But, Kamijo tried to retaliate. "I can negate that attack with this right hand of mine. His words were stopped midway. Naruto looked at the level 0 Esper and spoke. "You will die if you were to try that," he said. "Look."
Naruto used his index finger to point the huge spherical wind above Accelerator's head. It was growing larger and larger by the second. As the wind swirled, It sucked up gravel, bench, railway, and even the large metal containers started moving, though it was only slightly.
Kamijo did not need further explanation from Naruto. He knew he could only negate supernatural attacks. He could not negate physical attacks. The objects that were being sucked into the giant atmospheric swirl would directly hit his body if he stopped the wind, which was preventing them from falling to the ground. Naruto's words were correct. He would die if he used his right hand there. His body could possibly withstand the gravel, but not with those railways. So, he could do exactly nothing in this dire situation. Damn it, Kamijo thought as he stopped his movement. Isn't there anything else I can do at this moment? Too bad. It was too late for him to think about different solution. Accelerator laughed and yelled, "Die!" That was the last word they heard before everything went into chaos. As the big swirl of violent wind being launched, it left a trail of destruction behind. There was less than 10 meters distance between Accelerator and Naruto. Accelerator's wind attack flew at 120 meters per second. At that speed, having catastrophic building failures would be the most fortunate result. Most likely, it was not going to happen. The Academy City number 1 excelled in killing, destroying, and crushing things into nothingness. The attack only needed a fraction of a second to reach Naruto's body. However, the blonde boy was not blown away by, nor did he get sucked into it. Naruto held both of his arms in front of him, trying to stop the movement of Accelerator's attack. Kamijo, Makoto, Misaka Imouto, and even Accelerator were surprised, but they quickly get back into their senses. They could see Naruto's palms emitted an unknown reddish-orange glow which they had not seen before. Actually, to be precise, none of them had ever seen him in action. None of them knew what Naruto was doing, but whatever it was, it seemed to be able to slow down the movement of Accelerator's attack. However, the attack was still too strong for him to stop instantly. Naruto got pushed back by the tremendous force of the swirling wind and was skidding backwards. As he was trying his best to prevent the attack from destroying the city behind him, beads of sweat began to form on his face. He knew he could stop it, though. Or, rather, he could slow it down to the point it would not damage the surrounding that bad. He just hoped he had enough time to do that. He never tried to do this before, but it looked like it was working. He just used the most basic physics knowledge he had about air and its moving form, wind. Wind is generated by moving air, and the air could only move when there was a difference in temperature between two places. Naruto's Esper power was heat and temperature manipulation. Hence, by manipulating the temperature of the air around the spherical wind attack, he theoretically could stop the wind completely. However, it was not that simple. He needed to calculate the exact temperature needed to slow down and eventually stop the raging wind. And he must do that during every single moment of its movement to prevent from becoming unstable and blowing everything around it, including he himself. Although it seemed to be easy enough for him to do, it was not. There was another obstacle for him in doing so. It was Accelerator. The white-haired albino boy, too, must be put into calculation. After all, it was due his Esper power the wind was created in the first place. Who said he did nothing after he launched that attack? Even when he had done with his calculation to create the attack, Accelerator was still controlling it from afar. That being said, even if it looked like Naruto was the only person who did something to the attack, he was actually not. It was a battle between two Espers who was fighting using their mind to calculate and try to take control over that destructive force. If one were to lose their concentration, even a slightest bit, the result would be obvious.
Since it took too much of their mind, both of them could not make any other attack to gain advantage over their opponent. They couldn't divide their attention to do something like that. They needed to use every single one of their brain cells to win this fight. However, it seemed one of them had already had the advantage. Since Accelerator was getting farther and farther from the attack, it became harder for him to calculate. On the other hand, Naruto was making a direct contact with it, so he could predict what he needed to do next more easily.
Eventually, the sound stopped. The wind died. The atmosphere between them fell into silence. Every single thing that was being sucked into the wind had fallen to the ground. There was a distance of slightly more than 30 meters between Naruto and Accelerator. The blonde had been pushed that far, but he seemed to still being able to continue their fight.
Even though that last attack had finally stopped, the winner had not been decided. Both of them still had stamina left to continue.
It was Accelerator who finally broke the silence. "You're amazing." All of them heard Accelerator's voice. You're really fucking amazing. As Accelerator howled at the night sky, he ran forward, clenching his fist in order to crush Naruto. Both of his hands could kill with just a touch. Once he made a contact with his opponent's body, Accelerator could use his vector manipulation to reverse the blood flow inside his opponent's body. It was an instant kill that should be called a cheating technique if this were a game. However, in reality, that was his power. Nothing could stop him now. Naruto, too, clenched his fist. He knew this was the deciding moment of their fight. He ran forward, ready to put an end to all of this. As the distance between them closed, time seemed like stopping. One of them had the ability to kill his opponent with a single touch. The other one had completely understood the weakness of his opponent's defense. Both had the same winning chance against each other. The Academy City's strongest swung his fist. His aim was Naruto's head. He accelerated the motion vector of his own hand so he would be the one who make the first hit. As he made his attack, Accelerator averted his glance slightly. That instant, he saw his opponent's fist was still farther away from his head. He smiled. He won this fight. In the end, he was the winner. That was his thought before he realized something. As he finally reached the blonde's head, his fist went through it. Damn optical illusion. Accelerator cursed inside his mind. Even at this deciding moment, you're still a step farther than me, Naruto. The next instant, Accelerator's body slammed onto the ground. The Academy City's #1 didn't move, he was unconscious. Kamijo, Makoto, and Misaka Imouto. All three of them ran toward him as they were aware it was already safe for them to do so. The fight between two strongest espers in Academy City had just ended. Naruto waved his hand and gave them a big smile before looking up into the sky. He still had many things to do. There were still many unanswered questions in his head. His fight had not ended, yet. Are you serious? A girl's voice resounded in the small, yet well-ordered, room. While asking the question, she used a slightly higher tone than her usual calm and refined one. Her face showed disbelief, an expression that she rarely had. Did you just question my order, Kanzaki? Instead of getting a reply, she got a question thrown back at her. The question, however, was not a question that needed to be answered. It was more of a direct command from a superior to a subordinate, one to do what they had been ordered to do. Kanzaki Kaori closed her eyes for a moment. The tall 18-year-old girl with long black hair tried to calm herself down. She had never expected to hear that order from her of all people. The person she was talking with was the leader of the organization she belonged to, Necessarius. Laura Stewart. The owner of such a name was an enigmatic person in Kanzaki Kaori's book. She always had a hard time understanding what was actually going inside the blonde archbishop's head. It seemed that this time, too, she wasn't able to follow her thoughts. Actually, the order was not something she had never done before, nor was it an order which contradicted with her beliefs. If those were the cases, it would be easy to explain the question she let out in surprise before. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But still, she felt something was wrong with the order. As she pondered about how to make the archbishop explain more of the odd order to her, Kanzaki Kaori heard Laura speak. Look at this. The blonde pulled out a piece of paper from her pink-colored robe and passed it to her subordinate's hand. Upon receiving the paper, which actually was a letter, Kaori began to read it. Her expression remained the same as she read it carefully, word by word. But that was only until she reached the bottom part of it. Her eyes widened considerably. She didn't know how it was possible. It was something unheard of. For the first time in her life, Kanzaki Kaori was at loss for words. Seeing the shocked expression on her face, Laura Stewart began to explain. As you can see, that's a legal document signed by Her Highness. Now that you've read it yourself, will you still question my order? She really wanted to, but she couldn't. If it was merely an order from the Archbishop of Necessarius, she knew she could manage to skip out on it somehow. Maybe she could make an excuse or suggest for her to pass down the order to someone else. However, if that order was approved by the British Queen herself, could she deny it? Of course not. She must do it, whether she liked it or not. There was nothing she could do but to follow the order. I will. Those two were the only words came out from her mouth. She was still reluctant, but since it was an order from the Queen, she had to act accordingly. Laura nodded her head. Good answer. A smile formed on her small lips as she continued saying, I know you're a reliable person who always does her job seriously, but... Her voice trailed off as she paused her small speech for a moment. I want you not to hold back this time. I want you to use all your strength and come back here as soon as possible after you finish the job. Why? Kaori asked her superior, only to receive a puzzled look from her. You seem worried, and I know it's not me who you have that feeling for. Upon hearing her question, Laura's face stiffened, even if so little. That was an unexpected question. She was well aware she had reached the point where no one could read her. Be it bodily gestures, facial expressions, or her way of speaking. None of those could be used to read her thoughts. Well, that only left one more thing. Intuition. It was something no matter how hard she tried to, she won't be able to escape from. However, being an archbishop, Laura made a bigger smile and spoke. That's so considerate of you, thinking about me like that, but rest assured, I'm not feeling worried or anything. I just want everything to end smoothly, so I suggest you to concentrate your mind into your mission. She paused for a moment. After all, this is something only you can do. I don't think we have any other person in our organization who is capable of doing this. Kaori knew she was lying and trying to stir her mind elsewhere. Fortunately, she already prepared herself a countermeasure. This is so unlike you. She turned her body and walked few steps toward the exit. Why don't you start being honest, if only to yourself?
Without looking back, Kanzaki Kaori opened the door and stepped out from the room, leaving the archbishop with an unreadable expression on her face. Since she had already left the room, there was no way Kaori could see it. However, she did not have to. Even if she saw her expression, she knew Laura would just deny it and make another excuse, just like how she usually did. As she exited the room, Kanzaki Kaori saw Steel Magnus leaning his body on the wall. It looked like he was waiting for her. Let's go, Steel said, ignoring the confusion on her face.
What do you mean by, let's go? She just gave me a mission which I must finish as soon as possible, and it's not like I have made an appointment to see you, either.
Steel furrowed his brow and said, it means exactly as you heard it. He paused for a moment before adding additional information. I'm going to Academy City, too. His answer surprised her. I believe my mission is a solo. Why would you come with me then? Upon hearing her question, Steel carelessly shrugged his shoulders. He turned his body and began walking through the alleyway. She gave me a mission, too. You can say our missions are related to each other.
Okay. I understand that first part. Kaori began to walk beside the tall magician as she spoke. But what did you mean by saying our missions are related to each other?
So she didn't explain it to you. Steel lit up his cigarette, inhaled deeply, then let out white smoke from his mouth. He then started explaining. I know your mission is to kill that boy if possible, or at least incapacitate him. That's really a hard task she has given you. He stopped speaking, shifting his glance at Kaori. Although I don't understand the reason behind it, I think there's something between him and our archbishop. And your point? Steel let out a sigh. He knew the girl beside him already knew, but chose not to say anything about it. He decided to go along with it.
You know what I was talking about. Anyway, about my mission. His voice trailed off as he looked into the distance.
As she waited him to continue his dialogue, Kanzaki Kaori could see the expression on Steel's face become stiff. It was unknown to her as to what the reason was, but she didn't have to ask him about it. I was sent to retrieve that child back here. Without any need for Steel to explain any further, Kaori knew who he was referring to. After all, just like Steel, she was also that child's partner in the past. It didn't take long before a question appeared in her mind. Dealing with this Naruto of the science faction and retrieving Index and bringing her back to Necessarius. Just what are you thinking, Laura? Today was not a good day for Misaka Makoto. She stomped her feet continuously as she walked out from her school dorm. People who were passing by didn't have to ask the girl to understand just how bad her mood was. Actually, they had better not ask her about it, that is, unless they want to get an afro from electrical shock. The atmosphere around her was enough to make people think twice before getting near the number 3. The reason of her unusual behavior was due to what happened last night. It wasn't like she got blamed for something she didn't do, or anything else like that. It was more of because she came back way past the dorm's curfew. Last night, on her way to sneakily get into her room without anyone noticing, Makoto had a fateful encounter with her, the legendary super scary dorm supervisor who was a strict lady with twisted personality. No one dared to directly call her that, though. Because she broke the rule, Misaka Makoto had to receive her punishment from the dorm lady.
Other than getting her body hurt after being thrown into concrete wall, without any chance to retaliate, of course, the entire day, Makoto was stuck with cleaning duty.
That was where she got her bad mood. It was better to leave that alone and not to think back about it. Today, even though the summer holiday had not ended yet, Makoto was wearing her school uniform. The school applied that rule to each and every one of their students. It was unknown why, but Misaka Makoto followed the rule obediently. After all, she didn't want to get another punishment from the dorm's supervisor. She might end up with something worse than she already had. It was already late in the afternoon and the road was dyed orange. However, Makoto paid no attention for those trivial matters. She needed to go somewhere. It was her fault that the person who helped her ended up in hospital. Last night, after the problem with accelerator settled down, a certain spiky-haired boy suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Unfortunately, the reason he suddenly fainted was her. No matter how strong-willed Kamizu Tuma was, getting his body struck by not only one, but two lightning attacks from the strongest level 5 Electromaster took a toll of his body.
He shouldn't force himself in the first place. What did he think his body is made of? Some kind of electron absorber. How stupid of him, taking my lightning spear head-on.
As she remembered how badly that boy was injured from her lightning attacks, it was only natural for her to think back about their meeting last night. She had prepared herself to face the worst-case scenario if she were to fight Accelerator by herself. But that idiot, he stopped me and said those unnecessary things.
Her movement stopped for a moment as she thought some more. And I never gave him a permission to hug me. I need to get him back for that.
Although the number 3 said it in such a way, she could feel her face grow hotter for some reason. There wasn't a way she could have told, but her cheeks were now red. As Misaka Makoto was about to shook her head in order to chase away those thoughts from her mind. Oni-sama, a high-pitched yell from above woke her up from reverie. She looked up to see the source of the voice, which she already knew very well. Almost like the back of her hand, in fact. 3 meters above her, a girl wearing the Tokiwadai Middle School uniform suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Her auburn hair, which she kept in 2 curly pigtails, swayed behind her as she fell toward Makoto's direction. If this hadn't been Academy City, the appearance of someone from seemingly thin air would be classified as something worth being put on the front page of the newspaper with a big headline. But, of course, this city was not normal in the first place. While having such large number of espers scattered around the city, it was not hard to guess this girl had some sort of teleportation ability. However, there was still something odd there. The falling girl's arms were spread wide and her lips pursed. For some reasons, she had a joyous expression on her face. Scary, Makoto thought as she slightly moved her body to the right, avoiding the falling girl. Bam! The loud voice was enough to draw nearby bystanders' attention, but failed to make them gather around. For those who had lived in Academy City, even if only for a while, seeing such things happen was practically an everyday occurrence. Unless it was something extremely extraordinary, it was almost impossible to surprise them anymore. "What are you doing here, Kuroko?" Makoto asked the girl who was pitifully kissing the concrete brick, putting both hands on her waist as she leaned her body forward. From her uniform, it was obvious that she was one of the students from the same school Makoto went to, and from the way she called her, Oni-sama, it wasn't hard to guess she was but one of Makoto's underclassmen. While still laying face down, the girl known as Shirai Kuroko began mumbling under her breath. "I should have known I couldn't take Oni-sama lightly. It was even proved, since my surprise kiss attack failed to work on her." She paused for a moment, seemingly pondering about something. She nodded her head few times before saying, "I should stick with my original plan to sneak into her bed, and everything else will progress smoothly afterward." Makoto's eye twitched upon hearing that short mumble. A tick mark appeared on her temple as bluish-white lightning started crackling around her bangs. Without any warnings, a spear purely made of lightning found its way toward Kuroko's small figure. Or, rather, the place where she should have been. The girl with 2 long ponytails had teleported herself to avoid getting hit by the sudden attack. The level 4 teleporter who stood a distance away from number 3 spoke while covering her mouth with one hand. Fufufu, you can't possibly think I'll fall to such an obvious attack, can you, Onisama? Makoto let out a small groan upon hearing her response. Kuroko. Just tell me, what are you doing here? Not wanting to make her beloved Onisama get angry with her, Kuroko teleported her body next to Makoto and started explaining. I was heading back to the dorm after finishing today's work as a member of Judgment while thinking about what method I could use to surely make Onisama feel. Kuroko forcibly stopped herself as she felt ominous aura coming from Makoto. Her expression grew darker, as if saying, just get to the point if you don't want to get a fine-taste electrocution. Anyway, I saw you were going out somewhere. Since today isn't the usual day you're going out to grab your favorite manga, I couldn't help but feel curious about it. I guess you're right. Kuroko noticed the dangerous aura around her roommate had disappeared the moment she said that. That surprise kiss attack wasn't well planned, so it's natural for it to fail like that. Next time, I promise it will be something. There won't be next time, Kuroko. I was only trying to cheer up Onisama's mood because she started acting strange since she got back last night. Upon hearing Kuroko's words, Makoto had a questioning look on her face. She did not understand how last night's events could have made her act differently from before. It was true that she felt somehow relieved since the problem with Accelerator and her sisters had concluded. However, she still didn't know whether the project had been stopped or not. She hoped it had been, but no one knew how the higher-ups of Academy City viewed things. They might use the military sisters to join in some other experiments, so her mission to free all of them had not ended yet. She actually believed she made no changes whatsoever. Of course, that logic didn't work on Shirai Kuroko. The level 4 put one finger on her face while looking up into the sky, seemingly recalling something. Usually when Onisama sleeps, she has a frown on her forehead, as if she was having a bad dream or thinking about complicated things. But last night, she didn't. She paused for a moment before continuing. And strangely, she gave that enviable Gekota pillow a tight hug while blushing. It almost looks like.
Her voice trailed off, so Makoto tilted her head and gave her a short, A maiden in love. GBFHH. Kuroko grabbed both of the flustered level 5's hands and looked straight into her eyes with serious expression. Please tell me that isn't correct, Onisama. But if it were, then I have to know who the person who is a step forward of me is. I need to make sure my position is irreplaceable and give some punishment for trying to take Onisama away from me. What are you talking about? Stop spouting nonsensical assumptions like that. I'm in love. With that idiot out of all people. Impossible. So my position is safe. What a relief, but it doesn't mean I can slack off. I must ensure that Onisama's heart belongs to me and me only, fufufu. In the end, Makoto finally remembered what she was doing in the first place. Oh, I need to hurry. Sorry, Kuroko, I'll meet you later. She was about to leave the other girl, but she was stopped. Wait, Onisama. Once the short-haired Esper turned her attention back at her, Kuroko said, if you need to hurry, isn't it faster if you use my power? Shirai Kuroko's Esper power was teleportation. It was possibly the most convenient power a student might want to have. Just imagine all the things one could do with such ability.
That's true, but I don't want you to come with me. That was the continuation of the words that Makoto stopped herself from saying.
Just leave it to me, Onisama. Kuroko puffed up her chest as if trying to show off. Nothing in that area was worth being shown off, though. Ignoring that, Kuroko grabbed her roommate's hand and said, just tell me which place you want to visit and I'll make sure you arrive there in no time. Well, I was planning to visit this hospital and... Got it. Without giving Makoto a chance to finish her sentence, Kuroko used her power to teleport both of them toward a certain hospital. With her current state, Kuroko was only able to teleport up to a distance of 81.5 meters from herself. However, if it was done repeatedly, longer distance meant nothing at all. Such misfortune. Kamijo said that to himself as he noticed the displeased look index gave him the moment Miska Makoto and another girl from Tokiwadai, whom he had never seen before, entered his hospital room, which became rather crowded because of it. Tuma. Why is the short-haired girl here? And why is another girl that I don't even know here? Would you spare my head from getting another bite if I said I don't know the reason either? That comment successfully allowed Kamijo get away from Index's question, but it didn't mean he was safe. What? How inconsiderate can you be? I come all the way here because I thought you were yet to recover from your injuries, but I don't even get a hello. To make things become more hectic, Shirai Kuroko commented, so you're the person who is a step ahead of me in a contest to win Oni-sama's heart? And of course, there was also a certain girl dressed in a Miko outfit who said nothing, but she had a dark aura surrounding her. Ignoring the chaos which involved a single boy being bitten several times, getting struck by a couple of lightning spears, receiving a series of kicks and punches from a member of Judgment, as well as being glared from a side, the last occupant of Kamijo Tuma's hospital room remained calm and merely watched the scene without having any intentions to help him at all. Hey Naruto, stop grinning and help me. Huh. But people say you reap what you sow. In fact, you should consider yourself lucky being surrounded by beautiful girls. Maybe you should start thinking about making a harem? His words succeed making the four girls stop what they were doing. However, just when Kamijo was about to let out a sigh of relief. Tuma. What is a harem? Why you? You really are thinking about that, aren't you? I should arrest him and ensure the safety of Oni-sama's and the other girls' chastity from this monster. I should have known before. Somehow, the room turned battlefield fell silent. The reason behind it was because the girls had finally calmed down, and 3 of them had already left the room and went home. Only Naruto, Kamijo and Index were left. Come on Index, let's go, said Naruto. The nun tilted her head in confusion, as if asking why she must go. Visiting hours are almost over. I'll accompany you going home. Don't wanna. Index shook her head like a little child. I want to stay here. The silver-haired girl stated her objection. At that moment, Kamijo finally began to speak. But you aren't allowed to. The hospital has such a rule, you know? He then continued with a mutter. I just don't want to get into more trouble because you insist to do something against the rules. Tuma is so cold like always. Knowing there was no better way to make Index followed his suggestion, Naruto made a small deal with her. How about this? I'll buy you some food on the way home. In the end, that was all it took to convince the nun. Immediately after she heard the word, food, stars appeared on her pupils, showing how much she was looking forward having delicious food, all for herself. The hospital was near from Kamijo Tuma's dorm. It was only a 15 to 20 minute walk, depending on how fast they went. Naruto and Index had just exited the hospital's main entrance and made their way toward their destination. Naruto was not lying when he said he would treat the nun. However. Finally, I've been waiting here like forever. Who are you? And what do you want? Naruto asked while narrowing his eyes upon seeing the person grab her 2-meter-long nodashi that had been resting on the wall. Well, I think it's only appropriate if I tell you that. My name is Kanzaki Kaori. As the tall girl responded to his question, Naruto noticed the girl beside him step back, her eyes wide open. Her body trembled. Do you know her, Index? She nodded her head twice and warily said, she is the person who chased after me and even sliced my back open before leaving me. I almost died due to blood loss. Although what Index said was true, Kaori felt a twinge in her heart. It pained her on the inside to be remembered in such bad light by the girl who was once her partner in Necessarius. Actually, the event that happened a while ago which involved Index getting severely injured by her attack was an accident. She did not hesitate to use her sword on her because she assumed the walking church, the name of Index's nun habit, would protect her from such attack. Of course, she made that assumption because she did not know Kamijo had touched her with his right hand, which had made Index's nun habit lose its functionality. However, even if Kaori told her what happened back then was actually like that, neither Index nor Naruto would believe her. They would most likely make a conclusion that she was telling a lie. For that very reason, she chose not to say anything about it and kept the truth for herself. Stay back, Index, Naruto told the girl, who immediately followed his words and hid herself in a nearby alley. After making sure Index had moved far enough to not get wrapped into the fight that was about to happen, the blonde Esper turned his gaze toward Kaori. I don't know who exactly you are, but someone who mercilessly swings down her sword on pure girl like Index could be anything but good. Kanzaki Kaori narrowed her eyes. Her sharp gaze met Naruto's. How ironic to hear those words coming from you. I'm afraid a lecture from someone who did worse things in the past means nothing for me. Naruto didn't reply to that. He was indeed not a good person, either. Just like how she portrayed it, he had done bad things 20 years ago. No, he had done such unforgivable things that nothing could possibly redeem himself. True, but that doesn't make it okay to do bad things just because someone else has done worse than you. He threw a glance toward Index direction to make sure she was in a safe distance away. Okay, what do you want? Kaori put one hand on her hip and smiled. If Naruto was not in a position when a fight could start at any time, he might think that gesture was somehow attractive. After all, the person who did it was a girl wearing a short white t-shirt which she tied into a knot in the bottom, revealing her navel. The fact that the same girl had beautiful face and a pair of huge breasts didn't help at all. I have two purposes, actually. The first one is to eliminate a threat, namely you, while the other one had already accomplished the moment you told that child to stay back. Naruto instantly realized what she meant and turned his body toward the alley where Index had hid herself a moment before. Behind her stood a familiar figure of the red-haired magician whom he had met during Misawa Cram School incident. He never considered that person an ally, but he had never thought that person would turn to be an enemy, either. Style Magnus was about to use his right hand to karate chop the backside of Index's neck when Naruto immediately took action. He manipulated the air temperature around his body to help him move faster than normal human and bolted toward Index's direction. Their distance was merely few meters. That was like they were standing next to each other when someone moved in supersonic speed. However, before he could even cover about a half of that distance, sharp pain ran through his back. He didn't have to turn his head to understand it was the other girl who used her 2-meter-long weapon that didn't suit her to attack him while he left his back open. Naruto's movement drastically slowed down. Due to his movement lag, he could see Style render the small girl unconscious using his hand only. Shit. Index. However, his shout didn't reach the girl's ear. The nun had lost consciousness and the red-haired magician had wrapped his hands around her small body, preparing to take her away for a reason he didn't know. Of course, he was not going to let him get away so easily. He needed to think a safe way to save Index from their hands without accidentally hurt her as well. That child isn't going to be hurt more than that, so worry not. Naruto heard Kaori's voice from right behind him. He immediately became alert and moved his body just in time before she managed to stab him with her sword. After being dodged, the weapon hit the ground, creating a huge shockwave as hit. You should worry more about yourself now. She skillfully used the weapon, swinging several times in rapid succession as it swung over her due to its height. As Naruto jumped back to avoid a direct hit, he tried to apply heat on his opponent's weapon. He intended to make it become hot enough it would melt and become unusable in battle. However, that was only his expectation. Nothing happened to the sword no matter how hard he tried to melt it. Unlike some idiots, who charged without thinking beforehand, I've analyzed your power before heading here. She raised her Nodashi without much effort and prepared her next attack. Therefore, I applied heat protection magic to this Shichitan Shichitu in my own body. Naruto understood his current situation very well. He hated to admit it, but he was at disadvantage here. His opponent wielded a 2-meter-long weapon, which meant she had an advantage in close-distance combat. Another option he could have used was his Esper power, the one that was able to manipulate the heat and temperature around him. However, that option was also not possible because of the heat resistance magic she used, since it prevented him from doing any harm. While forcing his brain cells to think of a way to deal with his disadvantageous position, Naruto asked his opponent to buy some time. Who sent you here? Since you're coming with him, my guess is that you belong to Necessarius, correct? Even before she met him, Kanzaki Kaori had thought a question like this would come. Therefore, she could respond to his question readily. Oh? Wasting some time for some idle chat, aren't we? She stopped attacking but kept her sword ready to use at any moment, but I don't mind to tell you just that. In fact, it might be a little help for me if you get distracted after hearing my answer. She paused for a moment to analyze how the boy reacted to her words but got nothing in return. Her opponent stood a few meters away from her, seemingly thinking about something, but made no suspicious moves. It is your friend who gave me this mission. She smiled before adding some additional information. You might not know about this, but she is an archbishop now. Naruto thought about the unclear information he was told. A name appeared in his mind but he couldn't be sure if he didn't ask for a confirmation. If this person you're talking about is Laura Stewart, which I'm pretty sure she is, then I have something to tell you. He prepared himself to engage her in a battle again. We are not friends. He once again manipulated the air temperature around his body to help him move faster. This time, Naruto made sure he put all his power into it so he wouldn't get intercepted in the way just like before. His target, however, was not the girl he was talking with just now. When he was talking with Kaori, Naruto had analyzed other options he might have. He could continue fighting Kaori while waiting for an opening or by wearing her down, but those were not a good choices. He considered it as a waste of time, so he threw aside that option without any further thinking. He also had another option to make the protection spell she used to break by sending overwhelming power into it. Actually, that was the very thing he did 20 years ago when facing magicians who used similar techniques in the war. However, this time he could not do the same, because if he were to send overwhelming power to his surroundings, other buildings around him would also take damage. And it just so happened that a hospital was only few dozen meters away behind him. A certain spiky-haired boy was there, too. Naruto would not want to explain to Index that he accidentally roasted Kamijo and a few hundred other people in the hospital to save her from two magicians that were trying to kidnap her. Of course, for that reason, he needed to think of another way to deal with this problem. His opponent had stated it herself that one of the pair's objectives was to capture Index unharmed. Therefore, saving her from them should be enough to interrupt their plan for now. He could hide Index somewhere and lure the magicians to an empty area within the city before dealing with them. With that thought in mind, Naruto made his move. He launched himself toward the unconscious Index in hope he could probably pull off his plan. Just when he was about to reach the girl in white non-habit. Sorry, but I can't let you do that. Kanzaki Kaori had read his thoughts and stood before him. Even though she was a bit slower, Kanzaki Kaori was closer to Index and style at the time. Therefore, by predicting his next move, she had taken advantage of her position in their fight. If she were someone else, she might not be able to keep up with him. However, Kanzaki Kaori was born as a gifted child. She was one of the fewer than 20 people in the world who was born wielding the power of Saint. She could easily move at supersonic speed, had tremendous strength, and possessed great intelligence, as well as fast processing thinking. The fact that she also has a nice body only added more points for her. Simply put, she was not normal. Naruto just realized this the moment she appeared before him. At this speed, it would be fatal if he made even a slight mistake. Just as the two was about to clash against each other, several gunshots were heard. Both Naruto and Kaori jumped backward, since they had no idea who was the newcomer's target. Slightly thereafter, a familiar voice came from nearby alleyway. I hope you don't mind if I join the fun, Nya, Tsuchimikado Motoharu. This name belongs to a boy who was but one of Anglican Church's magicians. Strangely, he was also a known level 0 Esper of Academy City. Not only that, this person was also one of Kamijo Tuma's close friends in a certain high school. Moreover, he had been working as a spy for both the science and magic side. No one knew where he truly affiliated himself with. However, this Tsuchimikado surely had a huge burden on his shoulder. It was not as simple as dealing with all of those positions he had himself stuck with. No, it was much more complicated than that. Though, saying it was easy to deal with such a complicated role was like saying it was easy to find someone in a cramped place full of people. Tsuchimikado Motoharu had only one task to do. However, this was not an easy task that anyone could do. Any other person beside him might have already given up before they actually done something. It was simply because of how huge of a scale he was dealing with was. The main objective was to maintain a peaceful atmosphere between the magic and science side. If one were to think about it, that was actually not a possible thing to do. There was a fundamental difference between those two. Neither of them would want to walk side by side. Each of them wanted to eliminate the other party, if possible. That statement was proven 20 years ago when a clash between the magic and science side happened. Having a world war was an inevitable situation at that point. Actually, it could become worse than that. Who knew what could happen if they didn't stop their fight? It was unknown who started it, nor who ended it, but in the end, both sides decided to make a compromise. Of course, both of them had not accepted each other. It was simply because neither of them wanted world destruction. That was the reason as to why they made this agreement. Neither side will commit an attack toward each other without a solid reason to do so. Although it was made by the higher-ups of both sides, that kind of agreement sounded childish. It was like an agreement made by two little children who fight for a scoop of ice cream and stopped because their parents told them to do so. There was a high chance No, it was certain at some point they would start a fight again, given enough reasons. His job was to prevent that kind of thing from happening. It was just what kind of person Tsuchimikado Motoharu was. What's with those looks? I know I came late, but that's not really an important matter, right? Tsuchimikado asked with big grin. Instead of getting an answer, he got a dangerous look from the long-haired girl who was still holding her weapon at this moment. What are you doing? Kanzaki Kaori pointed the tip of Saichiden Shichitu toward his direction. You don't have any privilege to stop me from doing my job. Other than being a saint, which more or less ensure her chance of success while doing missions, Kanzaki Kaori had always hardened her heart before she started doing any job. Being in the same organization with her, she knew who Tsuchimikado Motoharu was. Actually, their friendship could be said a pretty close one, even though they almost never did a mission together. Still in his usual carefree attitude, Tsuchimikado replied.
Oi Kanzaki-chin, you don't have to be so combative. The boy took off his stylish sunglasses and put them into his pocket. Actually, this is also part of my job, so it's perfectly fine for me to interfere your mission.
That was the moment when Naruto suddenly spoke up his thought. Who are you? All of them had thought Naruto would use the opportunity created by Tsuchimikado's arrival to his advantage and take Index back from style, yet such question was the one that came out from his mouth. Tsuchimikado turned his body to face the other blonde, completely ignoring the fact that he left his back open. So you're the infamous person feared by people from Magic Side. His words made Naruto feel uneasy, since this person seemed to know something about his past and was able to say it with such a blatant tone. Of course, it's the first time we meet each other, but you don't look like a villain at all. My name is Tsuchimikado Motoharu, by the way. Now that you've introduced yourself properly, will you step aside and let me finish him off? Kaori cut off their conversation. Nope, can't do. Tsuchimikado once again turned to face Kaori. You know what my job entails. Only after my job is nullified will I let you do that. As the two glared at each other, Naruto asked another question. I don't know what you're talking about, but I will retrieve Index back right this instant. Bang. A gunshot from Tsuchimikado struck the gap between Naruto's feet. That's something I can't let you do, either, he said. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, Say, Tsuchimikado, isn't it? Whose side are you standing for?
Upon hearing the question, Tsuchimikado just shrugged his shoulders. What if I tell you I don't stand for either of you? He said before continuing. My job is to ensure a war between the science and magic faction doesn't happen. For that reason, I can't let Kanzaki-chin to kill you, because it will violate the agreement between two sides and therefore, it would most certainly start another world war. So you're on his side. Kaori yelled as she still pointing the tip of her sword forward. As I said before, I'm not siding myself with him, either, Tsuchimikado said offhandedly. As long as you don't continue to attack this, Naruto, an Esper from Academy City, I won't hold you back from bringing Index back to England. Naruto's eyes widened upon hearing that statement. No matter from which perspective he looked at it, this situation was certainly not working to his favor. Although his safety was ensured, Index's was not, and he couldn't allow that to happen. However, before he could make another move, Tsuchimikado spoke. The rule applies to you, too. If you forcibly take what originally belongs to the magic side, you will be risking the world peace. Whether you like it or not, Index is part of Necessarius. It's only because they haven't sent out an official order to retrieve her back that she could live here temporarily. Tsuchimikado looked directly into Naruto's eyes and asked, will you let people around the world suffer from having a war undoubtedly of greater scale from what you've seen before? Can you really do that because of a single girl you only knew for few days? What's your connection with Index, anyway? Nothing, right? If there is one person to save her, it's Kamiju, not you. Naruto fell into silence after hearing that statement. However, Tsuchimikado didn't stop there. By the way, don't you have a plan to go to England in the first place? Don't give me that look. I just happen to know more information than any other person does. The reason you're still in this city is because you can't get rid of it by yourself, correct? What if I tell you I know a way to remove that restraint from your body? I will even do it for free, since it doesn't make any difference whatsoever to my job. I'll just ask you to come with me and leave Index with them. I assure you she is in safe hands. They would not harm that child. It was a hard decision to make. He must choose between Index, the girl he just met few days ago, and the rest of people in the world. His course of action here might start another world war, one like the war from 20 years ago. He had made a promise to change himself into a better person. Which one should I choose? Is this the correct decision? Naruto couldn't help but ask himself. It was just a few hours ago that the blonde-haired Esper had left Kamizu Tuma's hospital room together with the nun-habit-wearing, silvery white-haired girl named Index Liberum Prohibitorum. It sounded fake, so everyone just call her Index, after patient visiting hours had ended.
Although Index didn't want to leave Kamiju's side, Naruto was able to persuade her by telling her he was going to buy her some food. Of course, she wasn't truly the incarnation of the deadly sin of gluttony. No, the girl just had monstrous appetite. Index immediately changed her mind and agreed to come with Naruto, leaving Kamijo for the time being. Unfortunately, not everything went as planned. During his little trip to look for some food with Index, just slightly after he left the hospital, a long-haired girl who announced herself as Kanzaki Kaori stopped Naruto and Index. She was a magician affiliated with Anglican Church's organization under the name of Necessarius, apparently, and a rare Japanese beauty who seemed to have an extraordinary way as to how she dressed herself up. Other than that, she was also carrying a 2-meter-long Japanese sword which didn't suit her figure very well. Actually, the main point of Kanzaki Kaori's introduction was that she was not coming to Academy City because she took a leave from her job and was planning to spend some time on vacation. No, it was far from that. Her intention to come here was to bring Index back to England, with or without the girl's consent. Unfortunately for Naruto, together with her partner Style Magnus, Kaori had succeeded in her mission securing Index from him. For that reason, Naruto had engaged Kanzaki Kaori in a battle to retrieve Index back from their hands. However, this battle didn't last for long. Before Naruto could retrieve Index back to his side, a third party interfered in his fight and forced him to choose one of two options.
The first option was to keep the fight with the magicians to rescue Index, although Naruto wasn't really close to Index to begin with. He couldn't deny the fact that he had just known her for more or less than a week. That was a short amount of time. However, the consequence of choosing this option was to possibly pulling off another world war between science and magic factions, resulting in unnecessary sacrifices all over the world. The second option was to back off and let them take Index back to England, the place where she should be at, the place that she actually belonged to. It was the safe option that wouldn't create any trouble for either side. It was the best option Naruto could take. The reason was simply because the third party who interfered in his fight, Tsuchimikado Motoharu, offered him a way to get rid of something that he couldn't get rid of by himself. And on top of that, he was willing to do it for free, or so Naruto thought. That something had bothered him for quite a while. Even after all this time, 20 years to be exact, Naruto didn't know who put it in him, when they had placed it, or why he had it in the first place. That something was a micro-device planted inside his brain. He couldn't be sure, but it most likely put there by the scientists who ran Project Naruto 20 years ago by an order given to them by Academy City's higher-ups.
Obviously, he didn't want anyone to mess up with his brain. It was his and his alone, and nobody should ever even think about taking advantage of him. He had been sleeping for 20 whole years. He didn't know if that was the only time they put him into such a state, or if perhaps there was another time in the distant past where he was alive, and dead, once again, creating a circle of life and death that shouldn't be followed by any human. And that was the very reason he had chosen the second option. He had steeled himself to let go of Index for the time being with the thought that he'd come to save her once the micro-device planted inside his brain had been taken care of, and went with the stylish sunglasses-wearing boy back to the hospital to meet a certain doctor. During their meeting, Tsuchimikado had the tip of his handgun pointed to the doctor's head the whole time. It was unknown to Naruto as to why he did that, but he didn't try to stop Tsuchimikado, nor did he even want to ask why the doctor didn't seem to mind at all. In the end, he was told the only way to remove the thing from his brain was to undergo brain surgery. The doctor said he was interested since this case was very rare, one he that had never come across with before, so he didn't ask Naruto or Tsuchimikado for a huge amount of money to compensate the hospital with. He said he could learn one thing or another from this surgery, and therefore, he was willing to do it for free.
Perhaps having the tip of a handgun pointed to his head also play a role concerning the not-so-profiting job he was going to do. In the end, with everything cleared up, Naruto was to accept the treatment right that instant. He was surprised that no preparation was needed, but he did not feel afraid of anything that would happen. Since his friend Kamizu Tuma had been hospitalized here quite often lately, Naruto knew this frog-faced doctor was a great and professional doctor with medicine as his field of expertise. That was 2 hours ago. Now, the blonde-haired Esper was awake despite just having brain surgery done to him. He should have been in a sleep-induced state, but the anesthesia he took didn't seem to have much effect on his body. At the time, Naruto heard several footsteps in front of his hospital room, followed by the voice of two people having a conversation. He didn't mean to overhear, but both of them didn't bother with lowering the volume of their voices. Naruto knew who these people were without needing to see them in person. The first was the frog-faced doctor who was given the nickname Heaven Canceller for his outstanding skill in the medical platform. He was the person who had just finished the job of taking out the micro-device planted inside Naruto's brain. It seemed he had carried out said task perfectly. However, Naruto felt like something was wrong with himself since the surgery had been completed. He wasn't sure, but he doubted it was the doctor's fault. For the time being, he would just let it slide and shrug it off. The second person, who had just started speaking with the doctor, was none other than Tsuchimikado. I don't have to ask whether the surgery was a success or not, do I? What a rude way to start a conversation, the doctor said in a nonchalant manner before giving an explanation. I must admit, this one is a rather special condition, but the surgery was a success. You may go inside and talk with him for a while if you want. For some reason, I had to use a bigger dosage of various medicines on him during the operation. I don't think it's related to him being an Esper, and I feel like learning more about it more. However, I doubt either of you will allow me to do so. Anyway, if you're to speak with him, make it quick. He'll be moved to a regular room soon. As expected from Heaven Canceller. You did your job well, Doctor. Actually, I have something to say. The situation is... Naruto couldn't hear the rest of their conversation, as they had suddenly lowered their voices to the point even he could not overhear them. It was not long afterward that Naruto saw the doorknob of his room turned open. He could see the spy of both the science and magic faction enter his room as if nothing had ever happened. It didn't take long for Tsuchimikado to reach Naruto since the room was not that big. At the time, Tsuchimikado stood beside Naruto's bed. The blonde Esper was sitting on it with his back leaned against a pillow. Tsuchimikado then started a conversation with him. How do you feel now? We could talk later if you are feeling unwell. If you want to live longer, you had better erase that stupid grin from your face, Tsuchimikado. My body is in perfect condition. I could give you a free cremation right this instant if you piss me off any further. ... What the? I don't mean that. It's true that your grin is stupid, but I won't incinerate you for that reason. Tsuchimikado, who was still wearing his stylish sunglasses despite being in hospital and was nighttime already, shook his head in a disappointed manner and spoke. Replying my question with such violent words, I think I could guess what the reason is. Upon hearing Tsuchimikado's words, Naruto widened his eyes. He felt something different was going on within his body since the moment he started questioning himself about whether this decision he had taken was the correct one or not.
Actually, he didn't really believe there was a way to define anything as correct or incorrect. Depending on the situation, a correct decision might lead up into something worse than the incorrect one. The fact that he could not turn back to the time of his decision forced him to adapt with the situation and accept his choice as the right thing to do. This right thing to do was the reason he had his old personality coming back to him. He had to accept this result, as it entailed the decision he had made. Perhaps it was possible to ask the doctor to put the micro device back into his brain, but that was not a wise decision. He was not sure it would have any effect even if they did so. However, Tsuchimikado's last few words made him feel curious. The boy said he probably has the answer as to why do this happen to him. Explain. No, that's not what I meant to say. I wanted to ask what he meant by his sentence. Damn, even that simple word coming out of my mouth sounded like what a torture and investigation division's head would say to his prisoner. How cold. I think I'm starting to understand the reason you're feared by people from Magic World after seeing this side of you. Tsuchimikado shrugged his shoulders and continued by telling him what he had in mind. That frog, he told me you have more than one micro-device planted inside your brain. Actually, you have plenty, and not all of them were micro. Unfortunately, despite having such popularity, that frog is not perfect. He wasn't able to remove all of them. 3 were left, to be exact. One of the devices he couldn't remove is planted to the part of your brain where memories are stored. He was afraid of what could happen if he removed it. The worst case possible would be a total loss of memory, including how to speak, walk, and other things. You'd need to start your life as a baby all over again if that happens. I wonder how a baby Naruto would look like. Your joke isn't funny and you'd better continue before I kill you. Alright. That frog also said he didn't remove the device planted on personal reality part of your brain. He said it actually helps you with your power. Well, that's strange. No Esper would ever need a device planted inside their brain to be able to generate their power, at least, no one ever needed that kind of thing in the past. This is only my wild guess, but I think you're not really an Esper. Don't ask me anything about it because I don't know, either. Do you think you're an alien from another planet that happened to land on Earth? That'd be a huge discovery for humankind if you are. And you won't be recognized as human if you keep saying incredibly unnecessary things. I wonder if that doctor would be interested doing an experiment using a new kind of ash made from an annoying client. I'm pretty sure he would, but no thank you. The last device he couldn't remove was the biggest one. He didn't know what it's supposed to do, since it's planted to the very core of your brain.
It could be anything from doing nothing at all to a very important thing, like remembering who you are. I guess that's why you attained such a large change in personality in this short amount of time. I don't really care about it, though. I've kept my promise to you. Your micro device prevented you from leaving this city on your own was removed from your brain. You're free to go wherever you want by now. The side effects that come with that is none of my concern. Naruto drew a conclusion with all the information relayed to him. None of it was good news for him. He, who had ended countless human lives before, had his violent nature returned back to him. It was great that the restraint that prevented him from leaving the city on his own had been removed.
However, it didn't come free. He had to accept the old personality that he despised so much once more. Could he become a good person like he previously intended to do? Or perhaps this was the real him? Was there a micro device with the ability to allow him to be good planted within him during past 20 years? That actually made sense, now that he thought about it more. But, how could he be sure about it? There was also the possibility that his true nature was still hidden somewhere, with this kind of personality made up for him by the larger device inside his brain. Is that all you want to say? Get out of my sight if you've finished. I want to ask if I can have some time to myself. Sorry Tsuchimikado, but I don't actually feel sorry for you at all. How uncouth, but that's to be expected from you. Tsuchimikado smiled in a burlesque way and continued saying, I know you still have your new personality mixed up with your old one, since I'm still breathing despite having been speaking to you for so long. However, I also know I won't live for much longer if I don't immediately tell you my true intention stepping into your fight with Kanzaki ne Chin and stop you from rescuing Index. You know that, but you're still beating around the bush. Looks like you don't value your life at all. With a smirk on his face, Tsuchimikado calmly replied. And why is that I'm still alive? It's because you can't kill me, or at least until I told you where Necessarius's new bases are located. The only connection you have with them right now is me, and since you now have your old and new personalities currently mixed up, you won't storm there, wreak havoc, and destroy everything only to find a little bit of information about them. You're still too kind to do that. Shut up. Just tell me what you want. Getting impatient, aren't we? Tsuchimikado asked in a playful tone. Alright, I'll tell you. It's nothing extraordinary, actually. I just want you to assassinate one person for me. A magician. Once you're done, I'll tell everything you want to know. This damn spy. This is what he wanted from the start. I should have known better. Now that I'm in this state of mind, I won't be able to refuse his request to kill that person. Tell me the target's name, location, and the reason you want his head. It'll be done in 2 days at most. I admire your confidence, but I won't think too high of myself even if I were you. Tsuchimikado took a seat beside the hospital bed and continued, the name's Fiamma of the right. He was a member of God's right seat, which I believe is still in Vatican now. After all, he's affiliated with Roman Catholic Church. As for the reason, it's simply because he's going to pull the string that will lead into the next World War for his personal benefit. To put it simply, eliminating him will prevent the Fourth World War from happening. If you ask me, it kind of feels like what they did to you 20 years ago. I could tell you more detailed information, but I doubt you'd hear me out. So, will you accept this request? That's enough. I'll see you in 2 days. You had better prepare yourself by then. Just like that, Naruto left Tsuchimikado without saying any more. As he was left alone, Tsuchimikado took off his stylish sunglasses and hung them on his shirt. The level 0 Esper stood up from the seat he just took mere minutes ago and pulled out a cell phone from his pocket. He dialed a number into the device and waited until his call was picked up. I don't really understand, but my job here is done. What do you want me to do now? A clear reply came immediately thereafter. Very good. As expected from Tsuchimikado Motoharu. Thou canst rest assured now. A deep frown appeared on his forehead as he heard the reply coming. Before you hang up the phone, may I ask about something? Where's thy durst? Ask away. I could think of several different ways that would achieve the same outcome as this, without getting me involved. Why did you choose this troublesome way? Tsuchimikado heard a giggle come from the other side of the line and patiently waited for an answer. Wherefore? Perhaps it's because you taught me some weird Japanese. In a certain room where a certain high school student being hospitalized. I know I'm not a lucky person with all this misfortune hanging around me, but this is ridiculous. The person who just muttered that with an irritated expression on his face was Kamijo Tuma. Just a moment ago, the spiky-haired boy who was now sitting on his hospital bed woke up. It was the middle of the night, the time when everybody should be in their bed sleeping, except those who still have to work at such an hour. He woke up just because his throat felt dry. It would not be a problem, normally. However, everything around him could hardly be considered as normal. Since he was still sleepy, the glass of water slipped off from his hand the moment he grabbed it from the small table beside his bed. Of course, all of the water spilled on the floor, leaving him with nothing to satisfy his thirstiness. It just happened that the nurse button, he didn't know what it's called, broke when he pressed it. Knowing there was no other option left for him, Kamijo slowly moved out of his bed, thinking it was easier for him to just walk out of his room and inform the nurse on duty while buying a drink from vending machine. He could just go back to sleep, of course, but that thought didn't show up in his mind. The reason was probably because this was an opportunity to walk around the hospital. This time, he got hospitalized because the number 3, Masaka Makoto, struck his body with lightning bolts. Twice. That alone was not what a normal high school student would experience during his lifetime. Fortunately, despite all of the misfortune around him, Kamiju's body didn't get any serious injuries. He only attained some burn marks and lost consciousness for quite a while, but that was all. He was a bit thankful he had a sturdier body than average person because if he didn't want to think where he would be at instead of a hospital right now. As he stepped out of his hospital room, Kamijo Tuma's gaze met someone's that he knew. It was Naruto. But for some reason, the blonde-haired boy didn't have his usual calm and cheerful aura around him. That was the first impression Kamijo got upon seeing the boy who defeated Academy City's number 1 last night. When he thought about it, Kamijo felt the aura around Naruto was similar with that of accelerators. Was it some kind of infectious disease? That would explain why he was still at hospital at this hour, Kamijo thought. Since Kamijo was oblivious with the changes happened to his new friend, he acted like how he usually did and greeted Naruto. Hey, Naruto. What are you doing here? It's not because Index dragged you back here after she made you buy her various foods, right? His greeting, however, was not appreciated the way he thought Naruto would. The Naruto he knew would wave his hand and smile. The Naruto he knew would probably reply his question with something stupid that had nothing to do with the question itself. But this Naruto didn't do so. The blonde merely threw a side glance at him, narrowed his eyes, and walked away as if he never met him before. Hey, wait. What's wrong with you? Are you trying to deny my existence? Kamijo quickened his pace, half running toward Naruto before finally he caught up with him. Get lost. I have nothing to do with you. Such a cold reply was coming out from Naruto was his answer. Wah. So you really are infected with that bastard accelerator's viruses, and I thought it was just a random thought of mine. Don't put me on same level as that albino roach. Naruto stopped his movement and turned his body. He gave Kamijo a cold stare before asking him, "What do you want? Make sure you make it fast, because I need to kill someone very soon." Kamijo was taken aback. He had never thought someone like Naruto would say a dangerous line like that. He is not the Naruto I know. Even though we just met each other a few days ago, I know he wouldn't say anything like that. As mysterious as he was, he wouldn't easily say he's gonna kill someone with such calm expression. Heck, even his eyes are unnerving. What's wrong with you? This isn't like you at all. Everything was fine until you went back with Index this evening. Wait, there is nothing happened on your way home, right? Naruto clicked his tongue and made an annoyed expression. Two magicians captured the girl and took her away, but that's none of my concern. Ask that stupid grin sunglasses wearing friend of yours for more detailed information. Upon hearing Naruto's answer, Kamijo couldn't help but widen his eyes considerably. Although Naruto didn't explain it clearly, he could deduct what happened this evening. From what Naruto told him, Kamijo knew that Index was kidnapped, but there were a lot of things he needed to Naruto. Hopefully the current him would answer said questions. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Damn, that's not important anymore. Now, where did they take Index to? Who are the attackers? What are they targeting her for? Is it because of the knowledge of 103,000 grimoire inside her brain? Naruto didn't pay much attention to Kamiju's rapid questions. He merely shrugged his shoulders and walked away from him. You sure talk a lot. I've already told you where you can seek answers for your questions. Kamijo didn't say anything more. He watched his new friend who had changed so much that he became someone else, Naruto, entered an elevator and pressed some numbers before the door closed. There was nothing he could do to make Naruto change back into his former self. Although he didn't know what the reason that his friend changed his personality in such short amount of time was, Kamijo didn't try to stop him. He had more important things to do right now. Index must be saved from her kidnappers as soon as possible. Therefore, there was only one thing Kamijo should do at this moment. He took out his cell phone and dialed the number of the person Naruto told him to seek information from. Kamijo didn't know how that person was related to this matter, but there was only one person that suited the description Naruto gave him. After all, the only sunglasses-wearing friend who also had stupid grin on his face was none other than that person, Tsuchimikado Motoharu. Aren't you supposed to stay in your bed, Kami-yan? When Kamijo turned his body, he found the person he was looking for and about to call was there, walking slowly while waving his hand at him. Why are you here? Kamijo was almost feeling lucky because it was so easy for him to find the person he was looking for. However, having plenty of experience dealing with misfortune in his everyday life, Kamijo knew better. He felt something really bad was going to happen soon. He didn't know what to call this ability to sense danger with. He was already feeling bad from developing a misfortune radar in the first place. My, is that really the question you want to ask me? And here I thought you'll ask me about more important questions regarding that girl who's living with you. By the way, your face looks horrible, NYA. However, Kamijo didn't have the time to think about his classmate's remarks. Nor did he care about how he looks like right now. Yes, I've plenty to ask. Kamijo eyed his friend who doesn't look like he was being serious at all. Actually, I want you to tell me everything. Tsuchimikado shrugged his shoulders with an expression of, it can't be helped, and closed the distance between him and Kamijo. He then inserted his hands to the pocket of his jeans with a carefree manner and said casually, now, should we go back to your room, or would you rather discuss it here? Actually, I know there's a newly opened cafe that sells good food not far from this hospital. How's that? Since you asked me to tell you everything, it would take a lot of time, and my throat will become dry like the soil where our mini-teacher grew up. Kamijo had completely forgotten the very reason he came out of his room. If he didn't wake up and spill his drink, he would probably not have to get involved with this troublesome problem. No, it was actually better for him to know about this now. If he was told tomorrow, or the day after, or even a week later, everything might have been finished already. Don't say bad things about Kamui-sensei. She may look like 12, but I believe she's one of the best teachers out there. Kamijo said what he had in mind before accepting Tsuchimikado's offer and followed him outside. Of course, it was prohibited for a patient who hadn't finished their hospital payments to leisurely went out as they wish, especially if the patient was sneaking out in the middle of the night with a suspicious-looking person, who was hiding firearm behind his shirt. Nevertheless, both of them had been able to escape from the hospital and were now sitting face to face inside a cafe with a classic interior design. Kamijo had ordered a cup of iced coffee while Tsuchimikado unhesitatingly ordered a jumbo tropical fruit punch despite knowing there was no such thing being sold there. It seemed he just wanted to mess with the waitress who dressed up in maid uniform. Really, how could this person act so nonchalantly at this time? Kamijo thought. But when he gave more thought to it, he recalled that his friend just so happened to have fallen in love with anything related to maids. Such a fetish he has. In the end, 2 cups of iced coffee were served on their table. Since it was still summertime, they saw nothing wrong with their order and drank a portion of their coffee before going into a more serious mode. Well, Kamijo did, but Tsuchimikado still as lenient as ever. I don't know where should I start from. How about you ask me questions and I answer them, Kami-yan? No, if I do that, you'll most likely only answer my questions and leave out what I didn't ask. I want you to tell me everything. Kamijo stared at Tsuchimikado's face as an aura of seriousness surrounded him. The spiky-haired boy wasn't in the mood for joking. His friend, no, he wasn't even sure what his relation with Index was. Any normal friend wouldn't stay at his house, eat everything he had, and couldn't even help with any household work at all. Also, the girl was not his girlfriend. There was nothing romantic going on between them. Hence, Kamijo should have felt satisfied with her being a freeloader, as it was the only way he could describe his relationship with Index. Well, I'll talk about 3 topics, then. Tsuchimikado leaned his back to find comfort on his seat. It's mainly about the girl, Naruto, and you. I'll make this as simple as I can so you can start doing whatever you have in mind after hearing my explanation. Kamijo straightened his position and readied himself. He felt concerned about Index, but the information about Naruto could help him, too. Also, this Tsuchimikado, he said he would also say something about him? What about me do you know but I don't? Kamijo asked himself. After leaving your hospital room, 2 magicians from Necessarius showed up and kidnapped Index. Well, not really. To tell you the truth, they were ordered to bring her back to London because she is needed there. Kamijo couldn't believe his ears. From what little information he got from Naruto, Index was captured by the 2 magicians Tsuchimikado mentioned. But he said they did that because Index was needed there. I'm sure Index would help if they explained things clearly and nicely asked her to come back with them. You're not lying to me, are you? Believe what you want. But first, let me say this to you. I won't promise I'll only tell you the truth. So, it's kind of unfortunate for you. But with all those unfortunate events you experience daily, you should be able to guess which parts of my words are true and which aren't. Probably. This bastard. In other words, he's going to provide me with false information. Kamijo thought about it for a moment. He didn't have the ability to tell if Tsuchimikado was telling him a lie or not. But Index was part of Necessarius, so it was only natural for them to bring her to their base, which was located in London. Anyway, let's move into the second topic at hand. Tsuchimikado cut Kamiju's thoughts off and continued. The Naruto you know isn't who he really is. He isn't as kind as you think. You saw how he treated you in hospital just now, right? Kamijo wasn't sure what to answer. It was still hard to believe that the blonde Esper he found in his dorm's veranda was actually a different person. He was alright and acted like how he usually did. To think, someone could drastically change in such a short amount of time. Then, who is he? I always want to ask him this question but never actually answered. How come such a strong person exists in Academy City but no one has ever heard anything about him? I mean, come on, he beat Accelerator. That isn't a feat any ordinary Esper could do. If I were you, I would feel better not knowing the answer. Tsuchimikado answered. However, Kamijo wanted a definite answer. That kind of statement wasn't enough to satisfy his curiosity. Kamijo stared at his classmate's eyes, piercing through the sunglasses and spoke with certainty. I don't mind. Tell me. I've warned you, but if you insist. Tsuchimikado closed his eyes for a moment. He seemed to arrange the correct words to use to tell his friend, Academy City is not a peaceful place to begin with. That being said, you can say that Naruto is Academy City's secret weapon. He was created and perfected by the power of science. His only purpose is to live as a weapon. And as a weapon, he has no right to think himself as a human. To put it simply, he is a monster, so you better not mess with him. Now, if you feel bad for him, Kami-yan, please don't. We haven't reached the last part of our conversation, which is about you. A weapon, no matter how one looked at it, was just a weapon. Its main purpose was to be used when the time was right. It can be used in emergency situations when the owner needed it the most. It can be used to protect something precious. However, it can also be used to attack others. It has no will of its own, and it will do anything it was told. But was that really the truth? What if there was more of it? That was not a question Kamijo could answer now. I don't know what kind of circumstances Naruto was under, but I don't believe he is a monster like you said. He'll go back to normal soon. Tsuchimikado shrugged his shoulders again and said, lastly, it's about you. Or more accurately, about that right hand of yours. Upon hearing his friend's words, Kamijo straightened his position. He had the power of Imagine Breaker, a power that can negate any supernatural power, a power that can even deny God's blessings. I'm listening. Kamijo gave a short reply, but his attention was solely directed at the person sitting across him. Unlike me, who's a level 0 because my Esper power is so insignificant and not of any use, yours is different.
You should have realized it by now, but even number 3 can't do anything to you. I believe you even have a chance to beat Accelerator on your own. However, you'll still be classified as level 0. Tsuchimikado said, the reason for that is because Imagine Breaker cannot be measured by any scientific method. It's not a power of science, nor it is a power of occult. To make it short, you don't belong to either the science faction or magic faction.
Kamijo nodded his head as he continued to listen his friend's explanation. Also, the incident at Misawa Cram School. Tsuchimikado eyed Kamijo from behind his sunglasses.
He could see Kamijo stiffen his body as if he was struck by lightning.
It was the day when he first met a girl in Miko outfit named Himagami Isa. It was also the day when he faced that evil green-haired alchemist. It was not a day he would want to remember, especially what happened at the end. I know you're fully aware this time. Therefore, you must know what lies inside your body. Don't put on that terrified expression, and no, I don't know how that thing got inside you. Sorry, but it seems you've to seek the answer yourself. As he saw Kamijo was still deep in his thought, Tsuchimikado stood up from his seat and said, you know, thinking doesn't suit you, Kami-yan. There's only one thing you need to do now, right? Here, take this. As long as you stay on the right path, there shouldn't be any problems. Kamijo looked at a piece of paper Tsuchimikado left for him. He wanted to thank him, but the boy had already turned around and walked toward the exit. Kamijo didn't try to call him back, nor did he say anything. All those things he heard were not important. There was a freeloader waiting to be saved out there. There was no time to waste, no need to think about unnecessary things. He had only one goal. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.